Good evening. The time is 7 p.m. I am calling the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees to order, July 12th, 2023. This meeting is streamed on the village website. The public can also participate via Zoom. Instructions and overall public participation guidance for commenting is listed on the website and on page 5 of the meeting packet. The Village of Los Ranchos is providing the ability for the public to participate in hybrid meetings. As with any application, digital service, or software, the opportunity for failure can occur. Therefore, the village is not responsible for the inability to connect to the meeting either by Zoom meeting link or viewing via live stream. The meeting video and audio is recorded and will be available online after the meeting on the village website. I'm going to move to item 2, which is the roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Trustee Sandra Pacheco.
Present.
Trustee Benavides. Present. Trustee Lewis. Present. Trustee Radnovich.
Here.
At this time, I'm going to ask the Boy Scouts and the young lady to come forward, present the colors, and please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please come forward. Who wants to recite the pledge?
I will.
Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please, you and the young lady come forward to right in front of, right here. I'd like for you to introduce yourselves to the people who are here. Give us your name and maybe a 1-minute story about what you're doing with the Boy Scouts and what your future plans are. So you go ahead, young man.
I'm Luke Bulow, and I'm part of Troop 9. And we just came back from a camp a couple weeks or two ago. And we went to Camp Alexander, Camp Geronimo in Arizona.
Thank you. And you, young lady?
My name is Alexandria, and I just came back from camp with Amonkville, and we went to Emerald Bay in California. And I learned how to kayak and cast.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. It is so nice to have the Boy Scouts back, and I hope they will come to every meeting and present the colors, lead us in the pledge. Our youngsters in the community are the future, and so we need to support them to the maximum practicable extent. At this time, item 4 is the approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve or amend the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 5 is general public comment. Participants wishing to speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda will be given 3 minutes. No action can occur on these items. Danielle, please proceed by calling up individuals that signed up for general public comment.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. The first individual, if he's present, I'm not sure if he's here in person or online. If he's online, we'll get to him in a minute. But Mr. Todd Clark. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Tom Donnellan. If you would, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees, and my fellow residents. There were a couple things that I wanted to speak about. One was the deadline for the October issue of the Village Vision. It is now set for ads have to be in by August 22nd. The last day for people to file to run for the office is August 29th. So it seems like that deadline should be moved out a little bit so that people who file can get ads into the Village Vision if they want. The second is I'm really, really disturbed by the fact that the contract, the development agreement that was made for the Village Center specifically changed how the site development plan was to be approved. It's the only project that is not being presented before the P&Z Commission and the Board of Trustees for their review and approval. I don't understand why the largest real estate development in the village was handled this way. And I really wonder, did you as trustees, those that are here, know that when you approved that agreement? Was that information that was presented to you? Because that's a very significant change.
There's no comment or discussion during public comment.
I realize that. I'm just putting it out there for people to think about.
Of course.
It just befuddles me that would be the one. And it's the one in which we as residents, and since you guys don't have anything to say about it, there's no public comment allowed for that to happen. So we had no input on that. When the Village Center was envisioned, it was always something that would be with heavy village input as to what was to be the center. That it was, oh, I have a 1433, huh? That I have.
See you tomorrow.
Whoa. So that it was always to have that. I mean, when the original VC zoning ordinance included that the very first thing that would happen with the Village Center project would be a charade with the residents. That was subsequently removed from it, but that was, in terms of how this was envisioned, was that this was to be with much village and residential input and input from the Board of Trustees. The contract, the way it was written, was that the Board of Trustees would be actively involved in doing it, so that it was limited in terms of what the rules were set, because they wanted the trustees to be able to say, this is a good trade-off to be able to do this or that, and to be actively engaged in it. When we were asked to raise the money, the $6 million that we bought, the notion was that we, the residents in the village, and the Board of Trustees and the Planning and Zoning Commission would be partners in the development, not passive signers of everything that came from the developer, which is what it's become. It's to me is a travesty of what was originally envisioned by Mayors Hooker and Mayor Abrams as to what this project was to be. And I just find it, I just can't believe that the trustees and the mayor actually took out residents' ability to have a
Thank you. Can you finish your thought? Your time has expired.
So the other piece is, I don't know how the county was told that the approvals were done before they were done. And I would urge you as trustees to find out how that occurred, because the construction started well before January 9th, when the village officials signed those approvals for the site development plan.
Thank you, Mr. Donnellan. Next up, we have Mr. Joe Craig. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito Northwest. About 20 years ago, one of the first things that I did for the Village of Los Ranchos was work on the Del Norte open space. It is dead. Half of our space is dead. Our trees that Mayor Larry Abraham marked with ribbons are dead. We are not watering. We have spent probably this year $150,000, $200,000. Trustee Radnovich last year indicated that he thought renovation of that was going to be $1.5 million. I don't know what it's going to be. The big cottonwood trees that are 50, 100 years old are dead. We're going to have to cut them down. We have had laser leveling, as I see in the cash report. It's not working. Half of the fields gets watered. Our west field has water, the east field is dead. The cottonwoods and elm trees, I mean, I can't kill an elm. I don't know how you guys are doing it. They're dead. And it's gonna cost us thousands and thousands of dollars if we can even fix this. This is an open space. There's no wildlife, there are no birds. The geese, cranes that we envisioned, not envisioned, they were there, are gone. So just a word of caution. It's, we've got it, we're gonna have to do something, whether it's now or the next administration, but it's going to be very expensive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Rhiannon Samuel. If you would, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Mayor and trustees of the board. My name is Rhiannon Samuel. My address is 435 Montano Road Northeast. And I'm the executive director for NAIOP, which is the Commercial Real Estate Development Association for the whole state. And what I would love to talk to you about today is the value of higher density projects. We know that higher density projects, whether they be multifamily, mixed use, or provide any number of amenities for their community, add to the tax base of the place that they are located. Additionally, they help with the vibrancy of the community. There's places to go, places to meet with your family, friends, gather as a community, perhaps watch some live music. Those things help build community. It also helps with the housing supply. I'm sure by now you've been told that the Albuquerque metro area is deficient almost 30,000 units. And some may think of those units as just perhaps multifamily or what others may call affordable housing, but it also includes single-family homes, those that may be on the lower income side of things, all the way up to those beautiful multi-million-dollar homes. We need to increase the housing supply in the Albuquerque metro. Also, dense projects help with us being more environmentally sound. They lower our carbon footprint, and that's something I know a lot of us are working towards. Now, what's really important to us is that the process is transparent, predictable, and creates sound land use regulation. If we default on that, if there are circumstances in which business is given certain assurities and they are unable to perform what they were guaranteed to do, it will have a chilling effect on our economy. As you guys have probably already seen, perhaps have kids or grandkids, they move away. And that's because business isn't really welcomed in New Mexico. And that's something that you can address in your roles as trustees. Now, on a personal note, my husband was born and raised in Los Ranchos. When we got married, we would have loved to live here. In fact, 4 years ago, we were on the house hunt and we looked everywhere. It was not possible for us to live here because we were simply priced out. We were in our mid-20s, even now in my 30s, I cannot afford to live here. And I think it's something you have to consider, being a multi-generational community. Because if you're not, who's going to take backfill when folks perhaps leave or pass away? You have to consider that possibility as well. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And please reach out to me if you have any questions about commercial real estate or just land use in total. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Mr. Gabe Gallegos, if you would please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Board of Trustees. My name is Gabe Gallegos, 501 Poco Loco Drive, Southwest. I'm a resident of Albuquerque, New Mexico, but I've always had aspirations of moving myself and my partner to Los Ranchos someday. I think it's really important to have different types of housing and have housing options so that young families like mine can have the opportunity to live in Los Ranchos. I would really love to see smart developments like micro retail and micro restaurant options for young families like mine, which ultimately will help small businesses in our entire region grow and flourish. I'd also like to see more places where young people can gather in this community, like breweries and restaurants, which will ultimately bring more new neighbors to the village and lift up all businesses and residents here. The future of Los Ranchos really excites me. I'm looking forward to future gathering spaces here that my family can enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Coralie Quintana, if you would please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and honorable trustees. I live just south of you at 720 Woodland Avenue Northwest, and I stand before you today as a realtor with my partner, Andrea Hankins, and our names are on the sign on the corner of Osuna and 4th Street. So I wanted to share with all of you today the phone calls that we get on a daily basis from that sign. Often we get calls from small restaurants, coffee shops, small businesses that would like to do business in this area. We are talking now with a local natural grocer who would like to be able to open their doors and provide locally sourced produce, meats, dairy to our community. Every single day, we get a call from someone looking for housing. Often, they are neighbors who are looking for a place for their aged parent. They are parents looking for a place for their college student. They are siblings looking for a place for their sibling, all of whom want to stay close to home. And it is a huge compliment to the village of Los Ranchos that the families who live here would like to stay here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Nathan Smith. Thank you. If you would please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Nathan Smith. I live at 1901 San Rio Court and own a home here in Los Ranchos. Thank you. First of all, thank you and your staff for your time, your efforts to hear citizens' input and deal with difficult issues. I really do appreciate that you're really trying to make Los Ranchos a better place to live. It's a great place to live right now. We moved here about 12 years ago. My daughter moved here about 10 years ago. And we are drawn to the North Valley and Los Ranchos because of the community, the mixture of land uses, the small houses, bigger houses, businesses and whatnot. So it's a wonderful place to live, but I'm concerned about our future. My daughter's a teacher. She makes teacher wages. We were fortunate to be able to buy a house for her to live, but now she couldn't afford to buy that same house in Los Ranchos. She makes fairly good money, but prices as a homeowner, it's great. Prices have gone up where we've got more value, but our younger people can't afford to live here. I would love it if my granddaughter, who's currently in college, who grew up here, if she could move back here and live here. But I don't see any way that she could afford to live here. one of the better things about Los Ranchos really is the mixture of things. It's not just all ranch homes. It's not, adobes are wonderful, but it's not just all adobes. It's a nice eclectic mixture of different housing and businesses. It's not like the Northeast Heights or different areas of town. And I think everything you and we can do to support that mixture of businesses, the micro businesses, and especially affordable housing for the young generation who, as the mayor mentioned, that's who we rely on. That's who old geezers like me are gonna have to rely on for Social Security and to keep this place a great place to live. So I appreciate your efforts and hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David Montoya, if you would, please approach the podium.
Thank you. I'm David Montoya at 8831 4th Street Northwest. I wanted to thank you, the trustees, the mayor, for what I consider your volunteer service. And once again, I'm here to speak about seriously considering paying yourself commensurate with what the work that we, who have high expectations, require of a group like yourself. And I think paying the mayor $12,000 as we do now and the trustees this minimal wage does not allow minimal meeting per diem that you get. It does not really allow for you to put in the time to take away from your families, to take away from your work, to do the work that we expect as a community for you to be completely engaged. And I think it's unfair. And I think you're not, if you would push this forward, I've spoken on this a number of times and others have as well. But if you're not really just doing it for yourselves, you're doing it for the future trustees. They're not gonna be all our age. And we gotta think about the future of this place. And if you hear what Joe Craig just talked about, what happened at Paseo, you can see that people don't have the time to really study what the administration or what is being proposed. And you gotta dig deep sometimes. And it really takes some research, some kind of background, and actually takes foot time to go out and see what's going on and look at it. Now at Paseo del Norte, instead of receiving money yearly from the previous tenant, we're now paying well over $100,000 to do what is not, what we would not be proud of. If you had the same thing at Paseo del Norte and you did it right over here at this beautiful Larry Abraham property, we would be ashamed. And we should be ashamed of what's happening. But I take it back to that we need trustees that are able to spend the time that's required, that we expect. And it's not shameful and it's helpful if we would think about the future of the village to help pay our way and take time from the work that you got to make. You got to make. You've got to make. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Ms. Gordine McKenzie, if you would, approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Gordine McKenzie, 7315 Guadalupe Trail Northwest. Hello to the mayor, the trustees, and other folks here. I did just want to, before I start on what I wanted to share as an observation, is there is a lot of affordable housing if you really go around in Los Ranchos. And many of us have seen a lot of it. There's a lot of for rent and other places. And the people that want to live here, maybe you want to look around a little more and see what's available. Anyway, recently my partner Nancy and I, we like to walk the ditches. And sometimes we come out on Tyler because there are peacocks and there are guinea hens, and we love to see them. Well, the last time that we came out on Tyler, we were stunned because for a moment, I thought we were in the Northeast Heights. The street had been redone. It didn't look like a street that was in Los Ranchos. And on both sides of the street is very sharp gravel. So we started talking to some of the residents there who we know. And I asked one, I said, well, what do you think of the improvement in the street? They said, we don't like it. We can't use our weed whackers anymore where the gravel is. And now the street is much higher and it's flooding my front yard and it's coming up to my door. I have also heard from neighbors that a lot of us like to walk on the dirt along the side. We don't like to walk in the middle of the street, particularly if cars are passing by. That includes neighbors that are pushing baby carriages and other things. You can't do that anymore. One resident said that the gravel was hurting his feet. He can't walk on it. So basically, one of the things that I wanted, and I should say, if it's hurting his feet, what's it doing to our beautiful peacocks and the guinea hens and the other creatures that are there? I wanted to ask you to consider thinking of how we use our streets. For example, I hope that never happens on Guadalupe because we still have horses going down our street. Our neighbors walk on the dirt area. We visit along there and do other things. And that's one of the things that makes our village beautiful and makes our village unique. So I would just ask, talk to the residents. Let's be thoughtful in terms of where we spend our money, because I understand that costs over $200,000. Can we better spend it? Can we make it more friendly for neighbors, for wildlife habitat and other things? Because now we have to walk in the middle of the street on Tyler. And so before you do another street, let's be thoughtful.
Can you please finish your thought? Your time has expired.
Absolutely. Let's be thoughtful and take our time and consider what people do. We can't ride our bikes on the gravel, but we used to do it on the dirt side.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Nancy Nangeroni, if you would.
Hi, Nancy Nangeroni, 7315 Guadalupe Trail. Mr. Mayor and trustees, as others have said, thank you for your work. I'd like to underscore what Tom Donlin had to say about village ordinances and adhering to village ordinances in contract agreements. We heard a court case about the legality of the agreement with Palindrome, and I'm not a lawyer, but it's pretty obvious that that agreement breaks village ordinances or supersedes village ordinances in a way that's not legal, and that denies villagers a fair participation in the approvals process, and that's how we got where we are today. I'd also like to express concerns about the road improvements. I hope you will not improve Guadalupe Trail. I think it's great just the way it is. It's bumpy. The surface is definitely irregular. And there's dirt on both sides of the road. And that's what a semi-rural road looks like. It does not look like a brand new piece of asphalt with oversized gravel on either side. the pieces of gravel are really large, and that's what's creating the problem. The road was poorly done, I'm sorry. That was a mistake to put that kind of gravel there. So beyond that, I hope that we can move forward and that public participation in large contracts will be welcomed in the future instead of circumvented. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, we're going to go to participants who have signed up but are participating online. If we could bring in Mr. Todd Clark. Mr. Clark, when you come on, please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
We are promoting Mr. Clark now, so stand by.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees. My name is Todd Clark, and I've lived and worked in downtown Albuquerque for the last 3 decades. I reside at 715 8th Street, and I work at 524 Central. 4 generations of my family have been in the commercial real estate business, served Mexico for the last 100 years. I spent 34 years of my professional career in the housing industry. I encourage your support to continue with your master plan to revitalize this important part of the historic Route 66 and 4th Street corridor by adding more housing and a vibrant mixed-use development. Due to all of the new Netflix, Facebook, and Amazon jobs, our community is experiencing the kind of economic development and job growth we've only dreamed about for the last decade. Unfortunately, this has created the 5th housing shortage in our community. Although these housing shortages go back well over 100 years, none of them are as severe as what our community faces today. If we do not supply the housing for all of these new jobs, everyone's cost of housing go up, whether it's rents or mortgage payments for single-family houses. Even though the market supplied 4,801 rental units in lease-up, under development, or under construction, this puts us well short of the overall demand of the bigger metropolitan area needs of 13,000 units, and that doesn't include the additional 23,500 single-family homes we need. This development and others will help those most in need and will help our community unlock its property ladder to bring the housing market back into equilibrium. I encourage your support for this housing development and along your retail.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Were those your final comments?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Ms. Martha Carpenter, who should be participating online.
Stand by.
Is she on the line?
All right, Ms. Carpenter, if you can unmute your microphone and your video camera, and we should be able to hear you.
Very good. Thank you. I'm sure you can see me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the trustees. My name is Martha Carpenter. I reside at 277 Dandelion Lane, Corrales, New Mexico. And the reason I'm here is because I am a resident of Corrales, and we are a very small community. We desperately need housing. And I have children. They can't afford to live here in Corrales. I've been here for 20 years. The closest they can live is in your wonderful village of Los Ranchos, but they can't afford that either because there isn't housing. We need housing. We need to help our children be able to live close to us. We here in Corrales, our small community, we've brought in micro retailers, micro restaurants. One of the biggest draw to Corrales right now is Ex Novo. It's a brewery. We were all against it because we thought the traffic was going to be too bad. We were going to have crime. Unfortunately, it has been a very blessing to Corrales. We have brought in grocery receipts tax that is unbelievable. Ex Novo has made their brewery a community where when you go there on any day of the week, they have games out there for children. They've set it up so that the parents can go and have 1 or 2 cocktails and have their children play there. I am in support
Let's be courteous,
of more
please.
housing. Pardon me?
I'm asking the audience to please be courteous. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so I am very in support of Los Ranchos having micro retail, micro restaurants, and more housing. Just like Todd Clark said, we need more housing in the state of New Mexico to bring in more industry and just to keep our children here in New Mexico. They're moving away because they can't find jobs. If they can't find jobs here, they can't find housing. So I'm not a resident of Los Ranchos, but I am of Corrales, and I can tell you that we're a small little village. And if we had more housing here, it would bring in more grocery receipts tax and more people would move into Corrales. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much. One other participant online, Ms. Mariah Chavez.
Okay, Mrs. Chavez, we will be promoting you to a panelist, and when we do, if you could unmute your microphone and your video, and we'll let you know once we have you on the screen. Okay, Mrs. Chavez, if you could unmute your microphone and your video, please.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes. You can.
Yes, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Mariah Chavez. My address is 1605 Copper Mountain Trail Northwest. I am currently a owner of a micro retail pod. I was previously a nurse prior to owning my own business, and frankly, I was very, very unhappy in what I was doing. Absolutely love taking care of my patients, but as I'm sure a lot of people know, career fields such as nursing, teaching, all of those fun things have really become very challenging, emotionally, mentally, physically. And I always knew I wanted to open my own business, but without these micro retail pods, it would not have been even remotely within the realm of possibility financially. Having this micro retail pod has been a blessing. It's been one of the best things that has ever happened to myself and my family. And I just think that giving this opportunity to as many people as you can is a blessing. So I just recommend, giving more people in Albuquerque the opportunity to follow their dreams, be able to afford their dreams. And this is how we do that. So I'm definitely in support of developing more micro retail pods, definitely more affordable housing, so on and so forth. I think it's only going to benefit our entire community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chavez. And with that, Mayor and trustees, that concludes public comment for those who signed up prior to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Item 6 is presentations. Go ahead.
She signed you up for 2 other items of business, but not for public comment. I have you
Mr.
listed
McKee.
for 2 items on the agenda. Let me double check, if you don't mind holding 1 second.
I'm not going to limit public comment because There's a crowd in here. This is a democratic process, and I don't care how long it takes. I will allow additional public comment because I understand where you're coming from, Mr. McKee. Okay? Danielle, is that okay?
Yes, give me one moment just to double check to make sure that we've got you. She did sign you up for public hearing item B, a new business. However, as Mayor indicated, if you wish to speak under general
Please come
public
forward,
comment.
state your name and address, Mr. McKee. You deserve to speak.
Honorable Mayor, trustees, good evening. I'm Randy McKee. I live at 749 Chavez Road, Northwest, been a village resident for 20 years. Heard a lot tonight in the open comments, and all I can say is all you Los Ranchos villagers, move over. Albuquerque's coming. You land-grubbing people. It was exciting to see action in the open space. The acquisition of the Anderson property is exciting. I saw it for the first time on the website where you were announcing what we've done. My concern is the process that was used. We were told early on, a couple months back, that you all were working on a piece of property, but it had to be under secrecy because you didn't want anybody else sneaking in on you and underbidding you is what we understood. We're excited. Or we were excited, we were anticipatory, thinking that we were going to see our first public space brought to us. Then we found out that it was the Anderson property and that we've spent almost 80% of our bond money for that piece of property. We did not have any input into that whatsoever. When KLRR, the Keep Los Ranchos Rural Group, went out and really rallied to support this bond, we thought we were going to be able to participate. We thought we were going to be able to help identify the places where this property could be purchased. We now find that almost all of this is in the south side of the village, and it's concerning. The north side isn't going to get any of this. I can't see how with just approximately $1 million left. And we find it disturbing. We're a little confused. There certainly was no transparency in this. I don't think anybody in this group feels like they were told or they were brought into this or explained what you all were doing. Some of this, we understand it's village business, but there needs to be some transparency. We're glad that the Anderson place was brought in, but it's all concentrated in the same area. And I can only hope, and this is my cynical side, that you all don't blight that, turn it over to the county, and let them build low-income housing in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKee. Mr. McKee, I also have you listed for this item further on the agenda. That's what I had you signed up for. So if you wish to speak again, you are on that list. So
Okay,
with that.
Wait a minute, Danielle. I see another hand up. Please come forward, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees and administrative members and my fellow residents and landowners. Anyway, Camille Vados, 427 El Paraíso Road, Los Ranchos. I've spoken many times. I wasn't expecting to speak. I thought I signed on public comment on the table, but maybe not, you know, and I apologize. But nonetheless, you know, we've heard from individuals out of Los Ranchos, NAIOP real estate owners or brokers. But you know, for those of us who grew up in the village and who have been here invested for 20-plus years or 10-plus years, that's a decade. Our neighborhoods are being displaced. You know, our elderly, and I am elderly, if they build million-dollar homes in the 9.5 acres on Candelaria and Guadalupe, there goes our property taxes they're going to raise. You know, I get that people want to live here, but we also have to protect our culture, our tradition, our venues here. We're a village. We don't have to be dictated by what's going on in Albuquerque. We're our own municipality, and let's act like it. You know, mayors, trustees, we trust you. We voted for you. But if it's not turning out in our own interests and we're going cluster living, density living, I get it. Change is going to happen. But we, as residents, our voices used to be heard. But, you know, I'm getting tired of coming because I don't know, I can't keep up with the change. But I trusted that our village would be a sacred place to live. My children grew up here. They stayed with their grandparents, you know, and we still believe in single-family homes. But I don't know, as I'm aging, if I could afford to stay on my property if the taxes are raised. And I think we need to think of what that means. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, and good evening.
With that, I'm going to move to item 6, which happens to be one of the most iconic events in the village of Los Ranchos. Katie Snap, Lavender in the Village, please come forward and tell us about the upcoming Lavender Festival.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of the Board of Trustees, and those of you that are here tonight. My name is Katie Snap. I am the chairman of the Lavender in the Village nonprofit. In 2004, we had the first year of Lavender in the Village Festival. I was not involved then. Many of you remember it. It had many venues since then, including on Los Poblanos, at the Agri-Nature Center, and most recently, again, because it was here before, the last 2 years here at Hartnett Park. It will be here this year again on July 23rd, and on Saturday the 22nd, we'll be having a benefit fundraiser. We come here tonight, and I'm the chairman. I'm also here with 2 other executive board members, Lisa McKinney and Nan Nash, to present to you some recognition that our particular nonprofit has stepped off of managing the festival, as you all know, and we have handed it over to one of our primary beneficiaries for the last several years, which is Rio Grande Community Farms. They've still been working with the same production agency, which is Dean Strober at Blue River Productions, so the general public probably will not see much different. But we wanted to just commemorate the fact that we're cycling out and how much we've enjoyed it. Not only has it gone through a lot of different stages, but it's finally at the point where it's actually making a little money. Early on, Penny Remby did a great job at getting it profitable, and then it was just really hard to keep going. So we've been really proud of the fact that we've rejuvenated it over the last few years, despite the fact that there have been some years where we took off where we just couldn't manage with the small board that we had. So I'd like to remember some of those times, like it's got a beautiful, the Agri-Nature Center now has a beautiful entry. When that entry was put in those planting areas where the Lavender in the Village board actually put those plants in there. That was fun. We started the lavender fields that are now owned by the village. We thought that it was nice to have some sort of recognition that there's actually fields here, because early lesson learned, when you put pictures of French countrysides full of lavender, the city shows up thinking that that's what it looks like to come to the Lavender Festival. So even though Los Poblanos did have years where they had UPIC, we thought it'd be great to sooner or later have UPIC here at the Village, and we have achieved that as well. So we're really proud of some of those things. Last year, the Journal published a really nice article. We thought it was beautiful. We had it made into a plaque, and we wanted to present that with you, Mr. Mayor, and the trustees. And it's a copy of the article, and on it, it says, "To the Village of Los Ranchos, in appreciation of your many years of support of the Lavender Fest, thank you from the Lavender Festival Board." Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. Let me ask Ann Simon if she can take a picture of this. Yes. Go ahead. Come on over. Come on over, please. Thank you very much. For those of you who might not know, and I assume most of you do know, Lavender Festival will be on the 23rd of July at Hartnett Park. And there will be a concert the night before. I understand, I'm not sure if there are tickets available for that yet or not, but there may be. So for that, let's move on to item 7, approval of minutes. 7A is the minutes, May 10, 2023, regular meeting. I need a motion to approve the minutes for May 10, 2023.
Motion to approve the minutes for May 10, 2023.
I need a second.
I'll second.
I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Now we'll move to item 8, departmental reports. The departmental reports are included in the packet and reflect all the activities listed. Ms. Rinaldi would like to present her report. Ms. Rinaldi, please come to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. If you have any specific questions about the report, I'm happy to answer those, but I'd like to go through the status of all of the ongoing capital projects within the village, with your permission. I'm happy to report that we have received all records from Bradbury Construction on the construction of Phase 1. We have received all reimbursements on all of the outstanding money on Phase 1. And other than the warranty items that expire December 31st with Bradbury, that project is complete. And moving on to Phase 2 in the final engineering, on August 1st, we are having a public information meeting to discuss with the public and solicit input on amenity that could be built into the design as we move forward to final design of 4th Street in the subsequent phases from Pueblo Solano all the way to Ortega. We are meeting on a regular basis with Bernalillo County, who have been funded and are in design of a road diet from Alameda to meet our project in the vicinity of Ortega. They are reducing traffic lanes to the same configuration as we have built in Phase 1 and are continuing to design to the north to the village limits. But their project includes a bike lane, whereas our project does not. So we are working to find a logical termini to bring that safely into the village project. So we're meeting on a regular basis. They have their engineer selected. It is Wilson and Company, and our next meeting is next week. That's ongoing. This flyer, you'll see it around. We're emailing it out, trying to get it to homeowners associations, and it'll be distributed to all properties within the project area. A lot of information on the website. And we hope to have the same kind of turnout as we had at the last meeting, which was the kickoff of the final design and to bring people up to speed where we are within that project. By the end of July, Mayor, Trustees, we are to have 60% roadway design drawings from BHI, Bohannon Houston, the engineer of record, and we will be scheduling a 60% design review with staff and then to the public to solicit input and to give additional information. The utility phase is also underway, and many of you will remember that it seemed like its own construction phase before we went into actual construction of roadway improvements on phase one. We're meeting with all of the utility providers within the area, the biggest one being the Utility Authority, Bernalillo County, City of Albuquerque Water Utility Authority, who provides water, sewer, and fire suppression within the village. They will be doing a complete relocation and replacement of their systems throughout the entire corridor. They did the same thing in phase one. We have yet to determine if they will be doing it all at once or if they will be doing it as we approach the individual phases. We're in discussions with them. All of the utility providers by the end of August are to provide with us maps that show all of the potential conflicts in our construction area and a schedule for removal, replacement, relocation of those before we go to construction on our project. I'm happy to report that we received the final tip amendment, Mayor. It'll be at the Metropolitan Transportation Board at your next meeting. We have received a little over $6 million in funds from Federal Highway Administration in the Transportation Improvement Plan for construction of the project. Yes. So there'll be more information on that shortly coming up as soon as that is official through the Council of Governments. And I'm not going to go over, unless you have a specific question about funding secured and for which phases. Any questions about that?
Well, I was going to get to questions on, if you're done with your report, I'm going to let the trustees ask you questions.
I'm done with the 4th Street portion, sir. If there are
Sure,
questions,
go right ahead.
may I
Finish the whole thing.
solicit questions about that, or should I go on through the whole
I would
project?
say go on.
Okay.
Trustees.
Okay, then I'm going to go on to a couple of other things about the 4th Street project. We have a contract with formerly known as Morrow Reardon Wilkinson Miller planned for a signage project on 4th Street. They're to have construction documents to us by the end of August. And this is a wayfinding signage project for signage within the public parking lot and along the 4th Street corridor in what's built in phase one, but to continue throughout. And it is to identify the character and the districts of 4th Street within the village. That project cost is about $17,600, and that is coming out of the 2021 legislative appropriation. And I anticipate that the actual fabrication, construction, and installation of those signs will come from that same legislative appropriation. Agri-Nature Center improvements. I'm very happy to report that all legislative appropriations have been obligated and will be fully expended by the time the outdoor classroom is complete. The roadway improvements, which was the beautiful entrance that's been improved on Rio Grande Boulevard, and the roadway alignment, that project, we added, through change order, we added an electronic gate access there. That project will be completed by the end of July. And we are in the acquisition of materials for construction of the outdoor classroom, which will be a demonstration kitchen to do literal farm-to-table demonstrations in an outdoor classroom venue on what is now like a colored concrete patio in the front of the Agri-Nature Center actual building facility. So that improvement will be completed by the end of August. And that will close out all of our legislative appropriations on that project, on that facility. Roadway improvements projects. We have been awarded for a project, we've been awarded $350,000 with the Village of Los Ranchos match of about $250,000 for roadway improvements. Taking note of the comments that were made, about Tyler Road and some of the improvements, I think that it would behoove us to offer some assistance to the facilities department who are responsible for the execution of these projects. I think that we should add some design money to that project. I was texting Tammy, we weren't able to confirm on this, but I think that we should explore the opportunity to add some design so that when they're crack seal and asphalt improvements, repaving, and the roads are selected from the capital improvement plan, the roadway CIP of the village. And when those roadways move up in need of maintenance for crack seal or repaving, they're submitted into the application process. But other additional improvements like drainage and the gravel that was spoken of in the adjacent right-of-way that was dirt for pedestrian path and such, I think that we need to make a better determination on the character of that roadway, and we need to ensure that we are not messing with the grade to the extent that it is having some unintended consequences. So I would make that recommendation as we continue to secure more and more funds. Our funding has increased 300% in 3 years. And we turn the projects around so quick, but I think that it is appropriate, based on the nature of most of these roads within the village, that we give it a little extra to make sure that there are no unintended consequences. That resolution and agreement is further down on the agenda for your acceptance. And Chavez Road Multi-Use Trail, as many of you know, public information went out on the survey start. The survey continues to be underway. As soon as we have adequate survey information to be able to discuss potential trail characteristics such as width and impacts on right-of-way potential encroachments and such, we will be having a public input meeting to discuss the findings in the field and to start soliciting input on potential design of that project. And I anticipate that that will be late September, early October for that first meeting. And the last project I want to report on is the transportation analysis, the comprehensive transportation study. You'll see these flyers around town. You may have had it emailed to you. We're asking the public to provide their input. This is a survey that lets us know what your experience is as a resident, someone traveling through for commuting purposes, somebody traveling to a destination within the village. And what we're trying to do here is we are trying to understand travel patterns of all users of the facilities. Level of service, everything from traffic. Right now, what's happening within this study is an analysis of operational use, traffic counts, crash data, and volume. So what we're asking people in the survey is to tell us what are your perceptions so that we can take a comparison of what the actual level of service is on our roadways and what the community sees as an acceptable level of service. Two very different things. What does the data show us? What do the residents of the village of Los Ranchos perceive transportation issues to be? What are those impacts on their quality of life? And one of the more interesting things that we're doing within this study is we are proposing potential development scenarios, picking vacant pieces of property within the Gateway District, off of Rio Grande Boulevard, and running scenarios at the highest density allowable, middle density, or lowest density possible, and looking at the potential transportation impacts and the need for improvements if those scenarios play out. So this is just for projection purposes and to show what actual impacts there may be based on development decisions that the village makes. So I would encourage everyone to You can get on the website. You don't have to, a lot of people are telling me they don't like to use the QR code, but you can get on the village website and you can click the link directly and take the survey. And I hope that you all will. And Mayor, trustees, if you have any questions.
Okay, do the trustees have any questions for Ms. Rinaldi? I'll just let it open. Whoever has a question for her can ask it right now.
Go first. Good evening, Maria. You had highlighted, or it was highlighted on my sheet there, the pending application request for construction funding. Could you explain that in a little bit more detail for me?
Yes, Mayor, Trustee Lewis, thank you for the question. We had the opportunity to submit an application for a funding source. We have already received transportation project funds for the 30% design. That was funded through that fund source. It is a fund source of the legislature funneled through New Mexico Department of Transportation. We received funding to pay for the entirety of the 30% design. And now we're on our second round of funding that is paying for 100% design. We also have $1.245 million in construction money from a subsequent award based on a grant application. We did not choose to submit a grant application this year because we're not in a position to meet the requirements for obligation of that money within the time period required. We're still a significant amount of time from going to construction on the money we have already received. So we decided that it was the most responsible thing was not to just keep adding money that we could not obligate and that we might end up having to revert when another community could submit an application and use that in the meantime. So we decided to sit this round out, and we may apply next year when we're closer to our construction phase.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Any other questions from the governing body for
I
Ms. Rinaldi?
do have some, Mayor.
Go ahead.
It's okay. Maria, would you mind just verifying, and this is with regard to the final engineering for phases 2A through 2C. You talk about public information meetings that have obviously been held and that are coming up. So what I take from what you have in your report, there are going to be 4 meetings for public input, and then there is going to be direct contact with business or owners along 4th Street. Can you just confirm that?
Mayor, trustee, there will be a minimum of 4 additional public input meetings, 60% design, 90% design. The amenities design meeting that's happening August 1st. And then there will be meetings specifically for landlords and tenants within the corridor. That's the minimum. Should a need arise, should an issue arise, for example, when we get into if acquisition of right-of-way is necessary, we know it's necessary for ponding for the stormwater system. It may be necessary if the decision is made to attempt a roundabout. Meetings that are specific to large aspects of the project that are not yet decided on will have their own public input meeting. So at this point, there's the minimum of 4, but I anticipate that there'll be at least 1 additional, possibly 2.
Great, thank you. And this is also in regard to 2A through 2C. So my understanding is that we have funding available right now to start the process. I guess my question is, if we don't secure enough funding for 2A through 2C, can we just do 2A?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, the problem with 2A is that we have state transportation project funds that cannot be mixed with federal funds. There's a couple of things going on with that. There's the potential in the legislature that the language that authorized this fund source may change to allow the commingling of funds. There's also the possibility, there's a number of scenarios. The big issue is at this point in time, we cannot take that $6 million of federal funds that we have on the overall project and apply it to phase one. Our funding gap there is almost $6 million that we're trying to secure through sources other than the federal funding, which is the most obvious. And we've been really successful at the federal level in phase 2B and 2C. It's 2A where we're having the gap. And
So it wouldn't make sense to then to start with 2B or 2C and work backwards.
well, there's, Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, there's always the potential to do any number of things to manage the funding at the federal level comes into play in 2026 and 2027. I mean, our hope is that we're able to secure the necessary funds to start with 2A, which is Pueblo Solano to Ranchitos. And if we are unable to do that at the point where we're already in 2026, there are possibilities to change the scopes and move some money around, and it's
Complicated.
there's a lot of moving parts, and I'm working on all of them right now.
Okay, thank you so much for that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, any other questions for Maria from the trustees? Go ahead, Gil.
Just a couple, just for clarification that I heard you correctly. So we received 6 million in TIP fund, Transportation Improvement Plan, is that correct?
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, that's correct.
And that, is that, so I'm looking at the report, and you have something in italics that says about 5.7 million. Is that the same thing?
Yes, Mayor, Trustee Benavides, the final funding numbers came through today, and we actually exceeded that amount
So that's late breaking news.
as of today.
Very good.
Correct.
Okay. Let's see, another question about the entrance in the roadway improvement project. So there was a change order for electric gate installation, and it looks like the price went up by about, 53,000. Is that just for the gate?
Mayor, Trustee, that's for the gate, and that's for the electrical required to operate the gate.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich, do you have?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
for you, Maria. Or one's a comment. You noted your very first bullet says Bradbury warranty period ends on December 2023 for phase one. And you probably want to get them to move that to either the spring of 24 or earlier in the year, because for the plants, for the trees and such, they're going to be dormant at that time, and you're not going to be able to tell if they're alive or not. And some of them look like they're failing quite a bit. So just a suggestion. And then I thought we were working on that signage program, and then it dropped. How did it come back?
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, they were unable to meet the schedule of the original task order, and we had obligated those funds under phase one funding. Because phase one funding was expiring, we dropped them off that funding source, and we spent all of the balance on BHI's 100% design contract, and we moved them to the 2021 legislative appropriation to be able to adjust the schedule to complete that project.
I see. And will the public get to see what those signs look like?
Absolutely. Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, actually, if you would allow us, if we can do a presentation at a Board of Trustees meeting after we actually had a meeting with them to talk about all of the elements, character elements that they've noticed around the village that could potentially become part of the signage project. We could certainly talk to them and see if we could add in a public input process.
If they're 60% done, they'd have to go back to the drawing boards, right?
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, they're not 60% done. They've literally just identified potential architectural elements, cultural elements, agricultural elements that could become elements within the signage project.
Some of that should probably come from village residents too.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else, trustee Radnovich?
No, that's it.
Okay.
For Mr. Aldees.
Of course. Now, if the governing body has questions on other departmental reports, we will have each trustee ask all their questions before we move on to the next one. Trustee Pacheco.
I'm going to talk really fast so we can get through this, and hopefully I'll answer some of the other trustees' questions. First question is for Administrator Simon. Just curious on the pickleball courts, what's going on there? I've seen the fence down. Looks like there's a little activity. Can you just explain to all of us kind of what's happening there?
Sure thing. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. That project over on Green Valley, right next to the old Village Hall, which is the Scout Hall, is currently in use as 2 pickleball courts and a half-court basketball court that's highly used. We have a wheelchair league that's out there on Tuesday nights. I see people there all weekend. It's really nice to see people out there. We wanted to improve that space. It was just painted, and we have people put their own nets up. We're going to add permanent nets, a real pickleball surface, striping, and new fencing. The fencing was old, and trees had gotten in between the fence posts. Unfortunately, getting contractors right now is very difficult, so we are on a list, but that project probably won't happen until the late summer.
Okay, thank you. I guess Joshua would be the next list of questions, and I don't see him here, so I'll ask you and you answer if you can.
Sure thing.
I was just curious, who comes up with the ideas for programming at the Agri-Nature Center?
Mayor, trustees, primarily the scope of practice over at the Ag Center is dictated by the master plan. I and Joshua and the mayor sit down and we talk about the kinds of things that we want to accomplish. We also have some advisory boards that are helping to guide us. One is the Ag Committee, one is the Agri-Futures Committee, and then the Master Plan.
Well, I'd like to commend all of those groups that have worked on this. I think that the programming is excellent. Definitely staying busy. The Aldo Leopold event, how did that turn out?
Thank you for the question, Mayor and Trustee Pacheco. It was fantastic. I went early in the evening. They were giving away copies of the Sand County Almanac. I think if I didn't set one aside for Trustee Radnovich, who I know wanted to attend, we have one for you. There was a really nice introduction by Barbara Kingsolver. It was a really nice addition. Everybody got a copy. They did some reenactments. It was a completely sold out event and it was lovely.
Excellent, thank you. And just wanted to say sorry to hear about all the tragedy experienced at Agri-Nature with all the livestock. That's always a hard thing to see.
We have a guard dog. It's doing great now. Thank you.
Awesome. And I think that is it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Trustee Lewis.
Thank you. Trustee Pacheco asked some of my questions, but let's see here. And if you can answer one for Joshua. You talked about, in here, you talked about support, the coordination of landowners, businesses, and farmers. Coordinated some of the YCC crews to help harvest orchards from some village landowners. How do landowners go about? Do they just reach out to Joshua if they have a big harvest and want help with harvesting it, or how does that work?
Yeah, Mayor Lopez and Trustee Lewis, we have a pretty good list now of people who receive Sabrina's newsletter, and she did have a call for projects. And we had a couple of residents take us up on it.
Okay.
But we're always ready and willing to go out and help community members who need help, either with harvesting or with just advice on gardening, anything.
I have no further comments.
Thank you. Trustee Benavides.
Yes. Let's see, Ann first. More of a comment here, so I was excited to see that we are going to get EV charging stations. I think that's a good thing, especially one on 4th Street and one here at the Village Hall. And hopefully that will help draw people to 4th Street. So let's see.
Thank you. I want to caveat, it's an application that we submitted, and fingers crossed.
Okay, not a done deal, all right. Next question, page 31 to you, Ann, again. Okay, Lavender Festival. So we have a completed MOU between the village and Rio Grande Community Farms. Okay, all vendors will be paying temporary vending permits. Rio Grande Community Farms has paid the barn and parking lot fees, and so this is the point. And both parties agree that proceeds from the festival will be to purchase a piece of farm equipment to share. So first of all, I'm happy to see that an agricultural related event benefits the Agri-Nature Center. I'm trying to keep pushing to make those connections much stronger. So my question is, who actually owns the farm equipment? I mean, let's say we break up in a couple of years or down the road or something.
Oh, Mayor, Trustee Benavides, that is a great question, and we'll have, the devil's in the details. We haven't agreed on the piece of equipment yet, but already we are sharing equipment. A lot of it lives over on the Rio Grande Community Farm side because they have more land and they have equipment that we don't have, and vice versa. We have some no-till farming equipment that they borrow. So we have a shared agreement. It's via an MOU that we would have to restructure if we broke up.
Yeah, breakups never go very well, do they? But anyway, I'm not too concerned about where the farm equipment resides. I am more concerned about who owns it. Given that this is a village event, I hope we do own the equipment. Okay, next, so let's see, we're just going to go through all the reports, right? That's all I have for you. And let's see, page 39. See, you can answer, perhaps, Ann, you can answer Josh's report, something from his report. On page 34, so I was curious to see there's sheep available for rotational grazing. I mean, that's curious. That's going to become a thing, you think, or do you know anything about that?
Yes, Mayor, Trustee Benavides, we have been seeing and cultivating sheep on the property for about 3 seasons now, correct, Mayor? It has been a contract sheep herder that came up and brought their sheep up to the center. And during our farm events, we've been doing shearing workshops and that kind of thing. So this is now the 3rd season.
I was more interested about applying that sheep rotation to private areas, but I think that's how I read it in the report. So that's also a possibility?
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, anything's possible. We can talk to Dominic and Joshua about that. Right now, it's we're rotating them around the Agri-Nature Center property.
Okay. Okay, let's see. One more question, and this would be for Fred. I don't know if he's still here or not.
He's here.
Okay, Fred. Page 42. So Bernalillo County Sheriff Office, North Valley Commander overtime funding. this is what we have been talking about for a while, is that correct?
Correct, yes, sir, and it is in the current budget, hopefully if you approve it tonight.
Okay, so it's not something that's in place yet, but will happen very soon, right?
Mayor and Trustee Benavides, we did have some funding earlier this year that we were already paying them for some small amounts of overtime.
Okay.
But that we've increased it this next year.
Okay, good, I'm happy to see that. Did you have something to add to it? Yeah?
That's the correct answer.
Okay, then, but one more thing for you. What is the motorhome on Green Valley? What's that all about?
I had a complaint from a resident there that there was a motorhome parked in the right-of-way as they crossed the Acequia ditch there, and they were concerned about traffic and people walking.
Oh, yeah.
And so we met code enforcement and we looked at that, and there is no law that prevents anybody from parking on that right-of-way. But we're going to try and work with them and see if we can at least get them to move it or rotate it around a little bit. But that's just a public right-of-way, and people, they park in front of their house.
Well, that's interesting. It makes me wonder if we need to relook at our ordinances. I mean, I would hate for somebody today can leave their motorhome in one spot for an extended period of time right along the roadside?
As long as it's currently registered, yes. And it's not obstructing traffic.
Okay, we need to think that one through. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
Fred, I think that's not legal in the city of Albuquerque, right? Or do you know?
I don't know. They may have a specific ordinance, but I'm not aware that the state does not prohibit it. And through the Municipal League's motor city ordinances, it's no different than you parking your vehicle in front of your house.
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing that prevents that.
Huh. Interesting. Thanks. I do have other questions, but I'll get to you later if that's okay. And I noticed, did I read this right, that you put irrigation in the new parking lot surfacing at the barn?
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, yes, that's correct.
Oh, I didn't see that going in. That's great. Oh, that's great. Oh, and thank you for setting aside that book. That's already been answered. I didn't send any comments to you about Edgewood Park, but I think that Edgewood Park's design doesn't immediately say to me Village of Los Ranchos. So I think there's a lot of vegetation put in that design that is not as it doesn't say Los Ranchos to me as a design. Just saying. The Anderson property, I understand why the public was upset about not hearing about it. I'm glad we acquired it, but it's too bad that we couldn't have involved the public in that decision. And I know why. It's because we were trying to protect the ability to buy it from others. But just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm really happy that happened, though. Could you explain a little bit more about the LR Foundation, if you could, the Los Ranchos Foundation moving forward?
Yes, Mayor Lopez and Trustee Radnovich. This is an idea that came out of our Business and Economic Development Advisory Board and Committee. And it would be, obviously we haven't developed yet, so it's still in concept. We do have an attorney, local resident, who is willing to help us come up with some bylaws and sort of some parameters. But it would be a mechanism for an organization to receive funds that the village maybe can't receive. It could also provide grants that the village can't necessarily provide because of anti-donation issues. So There are other models of this kind of foundation around certainly the area. In the state, the Taos Foundation is the one that we've been looking at. There are people from all over the country who donate to the Taos Foundation. It's privately owned. There are members of the Taos governing body that sit on the board, sort of keep that tie with the community, making sure that whatever investments are made by the foundation align with the government. It's just an interesting thought that we are considering. I know Trustee Benavides was also on the committee, if you want to add anything further.
No, thank you.
If you have any other questions.
I think it's a
we're
great-
just in the concept phase. And we have a couple of experts who are excited to help us get it started.
That's good. I had a lot for Joshua this month. Too bad he's not here, but he's really doing a great job, and the village is doing a great job with the Agri-Nature Center. I really, the things well, the one thing I was going to ask him, which you probably wouldn't know, is what a Johnson Sioux bioreactor is. Maybe you do know.
I do. This is basically it's a form of, it's a mechanism to compost waste material. It's a way to layer the waste. You layer it in a certain way with soil, with carbon, with nitrogen, thank you. And then you put air tubes in the top of it to release the gases.
Oh, cool. Really great list of things that you're doing over there. Let's see. I like Trustee Benavides, thought that it was really a interesting idea to have equipment that could be shared. There are cities and towns around the country that actually started co-ops so that they can share equipment with residents and and so I think taking it that far would be a really great thing.
Mayor, Trustee
if we could
Radnevich,
go that far.
that's exactly what we are doing with this shared equipment. So people can sign this equipment out.
That's great. And I'm really happy Rosie's out there protecting everybody. Oh, I was wondering, one of the, and you may know this too, we're now rotating chickens and sheep through the Agri-Nature Center. Is there any plans to rotate pigs and cattle as well?
Mayor and Trustee Radnevich, I don't know the answer to that. I don't think pigs are in the future. I know we're talking about potentially alpaca and some other kind of medium-sized animals. Don't think pigs yet.
There's great examples around the country of farms that rotate all of those animals through and really improve the soil and the plants that are being fertilized. So I'd recommend we look into that.
If I could make a comment, we are putting together a livestock committee, and we'd be happy to have you come and join us.
Thanks, that's okay. That was a note to myself, never mind. Not that one. Bear with me, this doesn't flip as fast as the iPads that everybody else uses. This was my question for you, Fred, and you know, this may add work to what you're doing, but I thought I'd at least ask the question. It might be good to see and you may have this, it might be good to see a rolling list of some of the crimes that are occurring in the village. every month I'm shocked at how many burglaries and auto thefts and all the other stuff that you put in your report happen. It might be informative for us to see that as a rolling list for the entire year. And you probably already do that, but just a comment.
Mayor and trustees, I think what I can probably do is, I get a monthly report from the sheriff's office, and then I go through it and pull out the key things that I think, but I'll work on that, and I think I can put that together very easily. Yeah.
It may give us clues as to when certain kind of crimes are happening.
Right.
So,
But I'll work on that, absolutely.
okay, I just thought I'd mention that. One other, I'm sorry, Fred, I'm sorry. One other thing, on other, you had El Caballero North Homeowners Association, El Paraiso, and Mullen Homeowners Association. Did anything, I mean, what is that about?
Well, I attended, myself and one of the lieutenants from the sheriff's office attended El Caballero North Homeowners Association meeting, in which we met with them, discussed issues that they have. And then I met with a gentleman from the El Paraiso and Mullen Association to talk about traffic and some other issues that they were concerned about.
I see. Thanks. That's it this time for sure. Done. Thank you.
Okay. We're now going to move to financial business. Item 9A, discussion and approval of the May 2023 cash report. Treasurer Will Fisher.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Before you use the cash report for the month of May 31st, 2023, the ending cash balance for May 31st, 2023 is $12,214,616.96, which is an increase of $262,338.98 for this month. Year-to-date excess of revenues over expenditures is $2,346,224.74, with 5 unusual or significant items to note.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the May cash report before I have discussion.
I make a motion to approve the May cash report.
I need a second.
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to go to discussion from the governing body, trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Trustee Lewis.
Thank you. My first question is, and Fred, maybe this is for you. What is LEPF expenditures with the Sheriff's Department? Or Ann, maybe, who wants to answer that?
Mayor Trustee Lewis, this is Tammy. I can answer that, or
Okay.
Fred can answer that.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy. Good evening.
Sure thing. Good evening, Mayor Trustees. So LEPF is the Law Enforcement Protection Fund. And what this is this is an allotment from the state that we receive to help the county pay for certain things, equipment, apparatus, and training. And this is an allotment that we got in fiscal year 2023 was $45,000. To provide to them for those different types of expenditures. So that money comes in from the state. We work with the county. They let us know the different things that they're needing, and then they send us an invoice saying, would this be approved? Would this be allowed? Fred and I review it, make sure that it is an allowable expense, and then we go ahead and reimburse them. So it is a pass-through from the state.
Thank you.
And I could just add to that, we're eligible for it because we have a contract with Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office.
Right.
If we didn't have anything, we would not be eligible for that funding. And so it can only be used for equipment and training, certain criteria that has to be met. So, and this year, I think it goes to $90,000.
Correct.
So.
Great, thank you, Fred. My next question is on page 2 or page 46, the cash balance summary by fund. What's making up the special other funds? There's a considerable amount of money in there.
Yes, so Mayor Trustee Lewis, the special other fund is, at this point, there is only one item that is making up that other fund, and it is revenue that's coming in for the Agri-Nature Center for different items. It includes anytime they have workshops, and it includes farm camp revenue. It includes the RAID grant that we received. It includes the Edible Trails grant. So that is specifically revenue that is from items that are over at the Agri-Nature Center. In the past, it also included the art market and the growers market. Those we no longer have on our books. And so this is just revenue from the ag involvement and the activities that are going on at the Ag Center.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, Trustee Benavides.
Yeah, I do have a few. Let's see, page 48. And I could ask this. We're going to do this all over again for the June cash report, I think, right? But I think I can ask it now instead of later. So I'm trying to wrap my head around how much does it cost to just keep the lights on in the village, pay the salaries, keep the Agri-Nature Center going, maintain our open spaces, this and that. And so I'm looking at this page, and correct me if I'm wrong, under total fund expenditures, revised budget. Is that like a $3.2 million kind of budget that we need to just to provide minimum services? Is that correct?
Mayor Trustee Benavides, that is correct. That the revised amount that you see there, that is for general expenditures, not including your capital expenditures. So yes, that is the correct assumption.
And so the fire is about $467,000, and I know we get state funds, so we get
Not for the fire.
Not for the fire. Okay. So it's just amazing.
I'm sorry, Mayor Trustee Benavides, I'd like to correct that. For the fire, that is directly general fund. So anything you're seeing right here, it is coming out of our money. So anything we receive from the state would be in a different fund.
So okay, the fire is 467 and police is like 591,000. I'm just trying to get a feel for how much those sort of things cost. But to operate the village, provide minimum services, keep the lights on, and maintain our open spaces, that's like about a $3.2 million budget. Okay, thank you.
All right, Trustee Radnovich.
Tammy,
Tammy, I just had a couple questions. Who is Full Circle Soil Health? And why are we paying them for? I didn't quite understand it. It says some of this goes to a senior center in Albuquerque, and some goes to the Santa Fe Botanic Gardens. It didn't make sense to me.
So thank you, Mayor Trustee Radnovich. What this is actually for, so Full Circle Soil Health is a contractor that provided us services to build compost bins. So they built 7 different bins. This was actually part of the RAID grant. And we actually received grant money from the state to do this. We received the money, and they were contracted to build 7 different bins at 7 different sites. We were the grant administrator for that program, so everything had to come through us. So even though they built these bins in different areas, that money was provided to us through a grant, and we were just the administrators. And so you're seeing that go through our accounts payable. But if you look into if you got the detail of the 299 fund, you will see the RAID grant revenue coming into that fund as well.
I see. Thank you, Tammy. One other thing that struck me as odd, are we still using Insight Works for architectural work? I wasn't aware of that. For the Agri-Nature Center, I'm assuming?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Mayor Trustee Radnovich, yeah. We were using them. They had designed the roadway, so there may have been a last check that we cut, and you probably saw that in in the May cash report, but that contract is finished.
I thought Bohannon Houston designed the roadway.
We had an architect and we had an engineer.
I see. Yeah, I saw that, and I was kind of surprised. Thank you. That is all. Thank you, Mayor.
Therefore, I am going to, excuse me for a moment.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item B, discussion and approval of the June 2023 cash report. Treasurer Fisher.
Yes, sir, thank you. Before you is the cash report for the month of June 30th, 2023. The ending cash balance as of June 30th, 2023 is $12,238,541.46, which is an increase of $23,924.50 for the month. Year-to-date excess of revenues over expenditures is $2,370,149.24.
Thank you, Treasurer Fisher. I'm going to need a motion before we get to the discussion. I need a motion to approve the June cash report.
I make a motion to approve the June cash report.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, now I'll go trustee by trustee discussion. Trustee Pacheco.
I just have some really quick questions on the check register. Amazon Capital Services for Amazon supply purchases. What is that for?
Tammy?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, so this is going to be several different purchases that happened throughout the month. I don't have the detail in front of me on that, but I can get you the actual Amazon invoice. I know that now towards the end of the year, one of the expenses that we purchased through Amazon were some of the Surface Pros. That might be one of the items on there, but this is one of the vendors we utilize to try and get the best price on some of our supplies. But I'm more than happy to get you the invoice to give you that information. I just don't have it in front of me.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. And the basketball hoop and pole, I'm assuming that is for Green Valley.
Correct.
And I think
that is correct.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Lewis.
I have no questions for June
Trustee
cash.
Benavides.
Okay, so we established in the May cash report, it takes about $3.2 million to operate the village. And our general fund revenues are $4.7 million. And I know these, the money is most likely encumbered, but you know, it appears that we have like an extra $1.6 million of revenue over what it costs to operate our village. I'm not saying that is all discretionary, but what I am wondering about is what sort of funds we have available that is our funds to apply to road improvements, things that we wish would have been done differently, to add beautification to some of the 4th Street project that we have going on, just to make it look better. That's where I'm wondering. We don't have to solve it now, but that's what I'm thinking about.
Trustee Benavides, I would like to comment on that.
Yeah.
I became the mayor on May 6th of 2018. On June 30th of 2018, this village had $7 million cash balance. This June 30th, we have 12,238. So there was an increase of 5,238,000. It is not unreasonable to predict that you'll get a similar growth in revenue so that 5 years from now, you could have another $5 million that you can use for everything that you're talking about. So we're not broke. We're actually doing quite well. So what I'm saying is, we just need, maybe I should back up and say it in a different way. We've been good stewards of our money. And that's the reason why the fund increased $5,300,000 in a 5-year period. That's a bottom line.
So I agree, we have been good stewards, and it's all about priorities. We're doing a lot of things.
Exactly.
We're growing as a village.
That's right.
And people are really busy because we're growing as a village. And-
Correct.
And, you know, you think about, do we have enough staff to work on all the issues we have going on?
We don't. I'm gonna be really honest with you right now, we don't.
And, you know, and I think receiving money from the New Mexico Department of Transportation to do our forestry, it's hard to turn down that money. It doesn't, there's not enough to beautify it maybe in the way that would be consistent with the project that we already did in phase 1.
I understand.
And I'm wondering if we could help to supplement that effort.
Well, we're gonna have to, and that's the answer. That's the best answer I can give you, Trustee Benavides.
So I think that's all I have.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
I have nothing.
Okay, I'm gonna call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item C, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-07-01. A resolution accepting the 2023 final quarter financial year ending June 30th, 2023. CFO Tammy Silva.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, trustees, before you is Resolution 2023-07-01. This is to approve the final quarter of the 2023 fiscal year. Before you on page 68 of the packet is the fourth quarter report. What this is just a breakdown of what I present to you in the cash report that I have to send up to the state. And if you look at the third column from the end, cash and investments, number 8, down at the very bottom, you'll see that our cash balance, it matches to our cash report. And again, this is just a format that I have to send it up to the state in to get it approved. And I stand for any questions.
Okay, before we get to questions, I need a motion. I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-07-01, the final quarter financials.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-07-01.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Discussion from the governing body. I'll go trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
I have none.
Trustee Lewis.
I have no questions.
Trustee Benavides.
No questions?
Trustee Radnovich.
None.
I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item D, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-07-02, a resolution adopting the Village of Los Ranchos to Albuquerque budget for the fiscal year ending 2023-2024. We'll start with Administrator Simon, then we'll move on to CFO Tammy Silva.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. Before you is the final budget for FY24. You approved the interim budget in May, and that budget didn't change very much. We added about $200 to the budget, so we kept it fairly similar. There were some changes, however, that occurred between May and today, and CFO Silva will go through those. I did want to say that I'm really proud of how well the staff worked with all of us, all of you, to come up with their budgets. Everybody is operating on a lean budget right now, but we are accomplishing things. And you saw that in all of our department reports, but you'll also see it in the projects that we have budgeted this year, like road improvements, a vehicle, some improvements to Village Hall and that kind of thing. And I'm happy to go through all of our capital and project priorities that we've included in this budget after Tammy speaks. The last thing I want to say is in prior years, we specifically called out a desire to move any excess funding that we had at the end of every year into our property acquisition fund. And because of 2 and 3 budget cycles of very conservative expenditures, budgeting and expenditures, we were able to sock away $1.4 million that we're going to use on this land acquisition. And that means that we do not have to borrow that much money, that additional amount of money. So I would like to recommend that we continue that practice.
CFO Tammy Silva.
Mayor and trustees, so before you is this resolution 2023-07-02 for the final budget, as Ann mentioned. And we started the budgeting process in April with our meeting where we discussed line by line. We went through our interim budget, and now for the final budget that's here before you tonight, there aren't very many changes. There are, I believe, 5 significant items that changed between the interim and the final, and I'm going to go through those. The first is that the general fund expenditures, as Ann mentioned, did not move more than $200. The biggest item that contributed to some of the changes is we had open enrollment for insurance in May, end of May through beginning of June. So we had to adjust that as our employees added or took away some of the benefits that they were offered. So that's the biggest change in the general fund. The other item in the general fund that changed is that we added a purchase of an ag truck. And this actually is something that was budgeted for in fiscal year 23, and we were hoping we could have it done then. However, due to a back order, just with working with the dealership and everything on the state pricing agreement, the truck wasn't going to be received, and it has not been received as of June 30th. So it's going to be received in the next couple weeks. So we just moved that expenditure from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24. So those are the 2 changes to the general fund. And then the 3 other changes that we made to the budget is in Fund 380, which is our property reserve fund. We budgeted to expend potentially the whole 1.4 million that we have. And so that was not in the interim budget to spend that. It is now in the final budget. So you will see on the last page, the cash balance summary page, you will see that 380 will drop to potentially 0. That's what we have budgeted there. Same thing goes for Fund 399. So 399 is our capital project other fund. We have $31,000 in there right now. And we are budgeting to use that $31,000 for the outdoor ag classroom plaza. And again, that was not budgeted in interim. We have now added it into the final budget. And the last item that we budgeted is for the 505 fund, the Agri-Nature Center Farm Camps Fund. This fund had $45,000 in it, and we are budgeting to use all of that money in this fiscal year, $20,000 towards the purchase of that vehicle, and the remaining $25,000 towards the outdoor Agri-Nature Center classroom. And so those are the main items that changed in this final budget. And now, if you have any additional questions, I stand for any questions. Thank you.
I'm going to need a motion before we get to discussion from the governing body. So I do need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-07-02, the final budget.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-07-2. And I'd like to attach the condition that any excess funds, funding just like we've done in the past, that this does go into our land acquisition fund as well.
Thank you. I need a second.
I second.
Okay. Now, discussion from the governing body, trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
I have none.
Trustee Lewis.
I have none.
Trustee Benavides.
No questions.
Trustee Radnovich.
Tammy, I just have a quick question. I may have missed this in the interim budget. And there's a line on page 71, line, I guess it's through 36079, we have rental income property? Was that the old mobile homes on 4th Street?
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, so this is actually a combination of items. So anytime we rent any of our property, whether it be the barn or the Agri Nature Center,
yes.
that revenue comes in here. But we also own a few buildings as well that we get paid rent from right now. One of those is Miller's Feed. So that's where that money comes in. But it did also used to include the properties that were on the corner of 4th and Osuna. It was a laundromat, a furniture store, and the gun shop. It did include those in the past, but we still do have some properties.
I see. Thank you. There's a line on page 74 for professional services, and it's quite a bit of money. Can you tell me what, is that an aggregation of a bunch of different professional services that we
Yes, Mayor Trustee Radnovich, that is an aggregate of several different professional services that we are using. It ranges from things like transcription services for meetings, destruction services for some of the old records that are past their time, for facilitation of meetings if necessary, for our contract with Kim Legant. Let's see what else here, for a contract with Sandy Geyser, and so it is an aggregate of several different items.
Thank you, Tammy. That's all I had.
Okay, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. It is 9 p.m. Next item is public hearings. I would recommend a 5-minute recess so we can use the restroom and then start the public hearing process at 9:05. Yeah.
You caught me off guard.
I did. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
I was zoned out for a moment, then you asked me if I had any more.
Yeah, she probably went to go see her dad. Yeah, I think she just likes to say I sent her a text. I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she did it. I have no idea. There's something about that. 15 years. I have. Hombre, how are you? We're gonna start in 1 minute. Time is 9:08 p.m. Now the mic is on. It's 9:08 p.m. I am reconvening the meeting, the Board of Trustees regular meeting, July 12, 2023. Item 10 is public hearings. Item 10A is discussion and approval of 23-03, a request by Nijmegen Plaza LLC for a preliminary plat for a major subdivision in the VC zone in the 4th Street character area. The property is located at 6502 4th Street Northwest, is legally known as all of Lot A, excluding east 165.84 feet of Blanche B. Doken subdivision of Lot 2, Merritt
and contains .5016 acres or less. Before we get started, I would like to ask each trustee for a full disclosure of real or potential conflicts of interest with this item of business. Trustee Pacheco, if you will leave the chambers, we will call you back when this item of business has been.
There you go.
Trustee Lewis.
I have no conflicts.
Trustee Benavides.
No conflicts.
Trustee Radnovich.
No conflicts.
Therefore, all participants who signed up to speak on this item of business, please stand. Attorney Winter will swear you in. You have to stand.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Therefore, Planning and Zoning Director Maida Rubin, please present the preliminary report.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you is a request for a preliminary plat approval for a major subdivision located at 6502 4th Street Northwest. The proposed project is a new residential development on a vacant lot, formerly the location of a gas station. On August 10th, 2021, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved a conditional use on the subject property for townhouses with a minimum of 24 dwelling units per gross acre. The sketch plat review for a site development plan for the property was held August 10th, 2021, and on March 8th, 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to forward to the Board of Trustees a recommendation of approval for preliminary site development plan. On September 14th, 2022, the Board of Trustees granted final approval of the residential site development plan under SDP 21-02. This application is requesting a major subdivision to replat the property so that each dwelling is on its own lot with a form of shared ownership and interest in the common areas. As the subdivision would create more than 2 lots, it is considered a major subdivision. On April 11th, 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the sketch plat application for the major subdivision. On June 13th, 2023, the Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the preliminary plat to the Board of Trustees. There are several code sections that apply to this request. First, 9.1 Subdivision, Vacation, and Development, which discusses the requirements for a plat and improvements for a major subdivision. And second, 9.2.14, the VC Village Center Zone. More detailed analysis is included in the planning report, but staff finds that the application meets the criteria in these sections. The department recommends the Board of Trustees approve a preliminary plat for a major subdivision in the VC zone in the 4th Street character area with the findings and conditions included in your planning report. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Okay. Before we get to questions, I believe we need to have the applicant make his presentation, and then we will have some public comment, and then we'll get to questions from the governing bodies. So the applicant will now be provided an opportunity to speak. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Trustees. My name is Chris Pacheco, 5905 El Prado Northwest, Los Ranchos, New Mexico. I'm not going to take 5 minutes. There's not much to say. In fact, Director Rubin probably stole most of my thunder. The site plan's been approved. The subdivision plan has been recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission 5-0. We confirmed to the VC code 100%. There are no deviations. I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. You may be seated. We do have one individual who signed up to speak. Miss Nancy Robinson, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Ms. Robinson, once you get to the podium, we're going to swear you in. Attorney Winter, please swear her in.
Ms. Robinson, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Can you indicate yes?
Yes. Sorry. My name is Nancy Robinson. I live at 231 Willow Road Northwest. I signed up, but I hadn't really expected to talk. The heat got me today. I was at home. Change of plans. Mr. Lewis, Mr. Radovich, and Mr. Benavides, did you get my email today?
Yes, it did.
I did.
You yes and a no?
Yes.
And a no.
I didn't get it because I didn't check, but
Have you shared?
Trustee,
Yeah.
Trustee Brandovich told me about it, but I have not read it.
Do you have any questions for me? Do you have any comment that you care to make to, to this side of what you think?
This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Therefore, you need to take your 2 minutes, say what you're going to say. The trustees are going to be discussing this in the quasi-judicial manner as we do when it's this type of
Okay,
hearing.
I'm watching the clock. I've been already I haven't been in front of you gentlemen, but I have been in front of the planning and zoning. I have talked to the mayor, and we had a concern with this corner for years, but we used to be able to basically ditch it into the property that's now going to be developed. So I can't really speak to, Chris's property being developed. I just think that the inadequacy of the corner doesn't lend itself to approving this. It's almost like postpone this until you can assure the safety of the area and then continue. That's kind of my point. I'll take my whole 23 seconds because I almost got in an accident there myself a couple weeks ago when I was trying to leave, when traffic backs up because they know they can't make the turn you want to get out. People on 4th Street back up. It's like a child or an older person crossing the intersection slowly. People back up. And then finally someone's just frustrated and they step on it and they come around and they almost took me out. But I live there, I know better. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pacheco, do you have any closing remarks to address the comments? Please approach the podium. You have 5 minutes.
I don't, sir. I respect the concerns, but we've met code. We've done everything we're supposed to do. We're overparked. I don't have any comments. I presented. I stand for questions as it stands.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to go trustee by trustee. Are there any questions / comments from the Board of Trustees for the applicant? Let me go to Trustee Lewis.
For the applicant, I have no questions at this time.
Trustee Benavides.
Yeah, I assume there's some line of sight regulation that you have to follow in terms of being able to see the 4th Street if you're coming out of Willow. Is that?
There are some line of sight, and that building in the southwest corner is actually back 13 feet to make sure that we accommodate line of sight. There are no specific line of sight regulations that I, as a developer, need to accommodate, but we did look at that, make sure that we maintain the line of sight.
Do we not have any line of sight requirements?
I would invite Maria Rinaldi to answer that question. You told me earlier that you are prepared to discuss that in detail. Am I correct, Maria?
I would defer first to Director Ruman to address, and I can follow up if necessary.
Mayor and trustees, there are clear site triangle regulations that were contemplated in the approval of the site development plan that contemplated the location of the building at the southwest corner.
And did he meet those requirements?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may?
Go right ahead,
If I may
Maria.
expand upon that, I was asked to take a look at the improvements made to Willow and 4th Street. And it appears that those improvements were made during the 2006-2007 4th Street project, Phase 1, to Osuna, almost to Solar. And that was an NMDOT-funded project. And so what I did is I met with the construction engineer at District 3, and I asked them to do a geometric capacity analysis per AASHTO regulations to determine whether or not adequate ingress and egress was met curb to curb on the width of that intersection, and they are currently undertaking that. There are no line of sight issues. As a matter of fact, the developer moved a bus stop that was there that was creating some line of sight issues. So the issue now that we're looking at, this is not a land use issue, it is an engineering issue, geometric design, width, turning radius at that intersection. And we are working with DOT now because it was their improvements that created the situation at Willow and Fourth. So they're undertaking that analysis right now. And we'll be prepared to report on that in the hopefully very near future.
May I add, however, that the applicant has met all the codes and regulations of the village, and there is no clear sight triangle violation.
Mayor, that is what Director Rubin asserts, and
That's correct.
the setback was accommodated within the site development plan for that purpose.
Okay. Any further questions?
That's all I have.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
I have no questions about that.
Okay. Therefore, need a motion to approve 23-03.
I make a motion to approve S 23-03.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, the floor is now closed for comments. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
I'd like not to vote at this time.
That's fine. So the motion carries 2-1. It does carry, therefore it's approved. Please ask, go ahead.
Mayor, I have some questions that I wanted to ask.
Go right ahead.
Instead of going just to that. And I think this is a question for you, Maida. And this is why I decided not to vote. On page 80, it says this application is requesting a major subdivision to replat the property so that each dwelling is on its own lot. My question has to do with what improvements, since they'll be owning each lot individually now, what improvements can they make legally to those condominiums or townhouses? The one I was mostly worried about is the height and improvements they might be able to make to the roof of those buildings.
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, so any alterations of the building would hopefully come through the Planning and Zoning Department for zone review permits and then to the county for the building permit. So that would, they would have to adhere to all of the height requirements. When we look at these developments, we look back to the approvals in the site development plan. And if it is within a certain margin, it can be approved administratively if it meets the code. But that is contemplated. It comes through the Planning and Zoning Department.
I see. So, and someone could report it if something like that were to happen? If they didn't get approval first?
Mayor and Trustee, that is why we have a very active code enforcement officer.
That's great. I have another question, which is related to actually one of the plans. And I guess I have a comment as well. On page 82, at the very top, it says residential development goal. And it says the goal is to sustain the village as a semi-rural, multi-generational community through residential development in keeping with village scale and character. In particular, the agricultural, historic, and open expanses characteristics of the village. This project doesn't seem very semi-rural to me. I'm curious about that statement within the report.
Sure. Mayor Lopez and Trustee Radnovich. So this part of what I'm getting at is the residential development goal is in accordance with the, trying to find the part. multi-generational, and in keeping with the village scale and character, this zoning and this area have been designated as the Village Center project area. And that's what that's trying to harken back to. I know that that's only part of the statement, but that was my intent.
I see. It's a little bit incongruous with the development, so that worried me. And then the last thing, I believe, is I couldn't read the landscape plan. I don't know if everybody else saw that as well, but the landscape plan is kind of non-existent, just saying. So that was another reason I was having some consternation about this. It's totally, in the actual documents here, it's unreadable. There's no, the legend and the schedule is a series of letters and numbers that are unlegible. So I would hope that in the final report, I'm searching for this page, bear with me. In the final documents, that it would be legible. And let me find that page, sorry. Page 100. Yeah, it's page 100. It shouldn't be that way.
If I may make a quick comment, the landscaping plan was part of the site development approval and is included for reference, but I understand your point.
So since this has been submitted this way, can the real plan be inserted into this package?
This is, Mayor and Trustee, the component of the landscaping plan that came into our office at this stage. This is not part of the subdivision approval, and this was previously done. So I can't speak on it. You may be able to ask the applicant about that.
I just think that the real landscape, I think the real landscape plan should be in the package.
I submit the plan. I think what you're seeing there is just problems in translation with a PDF file, because the real plan has legends. The plan gets submitted, they translate it to the packet, it gets messed up. You're free to come to my office anytime.
I
review the
remember
plan. I mean, it's been through the Board of Trustees twice now.
I remember it. I just thought it ought to be correct in the package. That's the other.
Unfortunately, I have no control over that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all the questions I had, Mayor.
Okay, the motion passed 2-1. We go to item B, but let's invite Trustee Pacheco back into the room so we can get started. That's, well, 2-0. You're correct. It's 2-0. Okay, we're going to move to item B, discussion and approval to adopt ordinance 295, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of Village of Los Ranchos to Albuquerque, New Mexico general obligation bonds, Series 2023, in the principal amount of $6,068,000, payable from ad valorem taxes levied on all taxable property within the village, levied without limit as to rate or amount, providing for the form, terms and conditions of the bonds, the manner of their execution, and the method and security for payment, providing for the award and sale of the bonds to the purchaser, and the price to be paid by the purchaser for the bonds, and providing for other details concerning the bonds. Administrator Simon.
All right, thank you. Mayor and trustees, we're very appreciative to the voters for giving us the approval to issue general obligation bonds for the purchase of real property as open space. As you know, the property in question is the Anderson Fields, and here to take us through the issuance of these bonds is Chris Muirhead and Eric Harrigan.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor and trustees. Eric Harrigan with RBC Capital Markets. I believe there is a presentation in your packets. I'll just kind of briefly walk through that. I'll kind of cover the highlights of the financing, and then I will turn it over to Chris Muirhead with the Module Law Firm to kind of walk through the document that is before you. So last week, we did lock in interest rates with the New Mexico Finance Authority. As mentioned, the par amount is $6,068,000. That does leave $1,932,000 of remaining voter authorized general obligation bonds that the village could issue at some time in the future if it so wished. The true interest rate on the bonds was 3.53%, a little bit lower than what we were originally anticipating. If you recall, when we were in May, when I was here in May, we were anticipating that rate to be about 3.65%. As I mentioned, the New Mexico Finance Authority is the purchaser. The bonds were structured in consideration of the 2007 bonds that are currently outstanding, and the annual debt service on these bonds is about $505,000 per year. This will continue the 1 mil rate that the village does have in place for debt service. And as is in the past with the 2007 bonds, the village will be required to deposit funds into that debt service fund annually to maintain that 1 mil tax rate. Just from an interest rate kind of perspective and market perspective, obviously the Federal Reserve has been sort of dominating the headlines when it comes to interest rates. They have raised the overnight lending rate significantly. However, this is a long-term bond issue. It's for 20 years, and long-term rates are actually lower than short-term rates, an inverted yield curve. When you look, back at history over the last 20 years, even though interest rates are up since the last couple of years, 3.53% is still a very attractive interest rate. And I'm happy to answer a question. One other thing I just would like to mention is that the bonds do have an optional redemption feature of 10 years. If the village so chose to either refund or pay those off early, in 10 years, the village would have the option to do that. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I can turn it over to...
Before we get to questions, I need a motion to approve the adoption of ordinance number 295.
Motion to approve to adopt ordinance 295.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, now we get to discussion from the governing body. Trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
I have none.
Trustee Lewis.
Thank you. I'm not sure how to call the page. You have an example on outstanding debt service, projected tax rate, village contribution.
Yes.
Can you walk me through that page a little bit?
Sure. So what this page depicts is the 2007 bonds, the debt service that is currently outstanding, as well as the 2023 bonds that we are talking about this evening, and the total combined debt service. So the total combined debt service of the 2007 and 2023 bonds beginning next year will range from about $517,000. It'll be about $530, $528, $526 until 27, and then it declines to about $505,000 and remains level thereafter. I think what you're interested in is that projecting out the 1 mil tax rate, we're assuming a 3% growth in the village's assessed value of your tax base. The annual contribution in 2024 will be about $220,000 to maintain that 1 mil tax rate. As your tax base grows, though, that contribution goes down, assuming 3% growth. That contribution would go down further if your tax base grew faster than 3%. Conversely, that contribution might go up if your tax base does not grow by 3%. But over time, that contribution amount will slowly but surely decline, and until 2042, the village, if the village's tax base continued to grow at 3%, would effectively go to zero at that point in time, and 1 mil property tax levy would be able to support the full amount of that debt if the tax base grew by 3%. And that's what that chart represents.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
I have no further questions.
Trustee Benavidez.
I have none.
Trustee Radnovich.
I just have one question. I'm assuming that Nan reviewed this, the legalese in this document. I mean, I read it, I tried to read it, and there is so much that is inexplicable and ununderstandable by me. So I just want to make sure we have someone looking at it.
Yeah.
Mayor, trustees, Stelzner is not Red Book Bond Counsel. We did review it because we do catch edits from time to time. Sometimes there's a mention of a city or a village or a town that's not appropriate.
Right.
We make sure that the clerk and the mayor are indicated correctly because sometimes they're not. But we did engage Red Book Bond Counsel, if that's the appropriate term, and that is the gentleman at the podium.
Right. Mayor, trustee, so yes, just to be very clear, we represent you. So Nan is your general counsel, but the Monroe firm is your bond counsel on this, and so our loyalties run 100% to you. We draft it with the interest of the village in mind, making sure that it's as locked down as it needs to be. And at the end of the day, when we issue the bonds, we give a legal opinion that says they're validly issued, properly authorized, and so we would stand in front of you if anything ever happened. But I totally understand that it can be dense. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I have no other questions, Mayor.
Okay, at this time, we're going to call up the individuals who signed up prior listing on the sheet to speak. We start with Randy McKee. Please come. Okay, is Linda McKee? R. Foster Seaton, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Foster Seaton, more generally known as Terry Seaton, 336 Naravisa Court, Northwest. Looking at issuing bonds and so forth, I noted, Mr. Mayor, that you had a column in the Albuquerque paper about how the new development at 4th and Osuna was going to be the, I think you said, economic engine the village needs.
It will be.
If so, why do you need more taxes from me? If not, why don't you make them the economic engine and make them pay for it?
Okay. This is not a quasi-judicial hearing, so therefore I'm not going to comment.
That's
Am I
fine.
correct, Nan Winter? I should not be commenting on this.
That's fine. I'm posing
Okay,
the
thank you.
question.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anybody on Zoom who signed up? No, sir. Okay. Then the floor is now closed for comments. If you want to come up, please do.
I have a question. I'm just wondering, since we're taking all this.
Mr. Montoya, please state your name
David
and address for
Montoya,
the record.
8831 4th Street. Since we're taking this debt all the way to 2024, 2042, I just wondered, is this going to blow us for any possible bond in the future?
No.
Because it seems like it goes out a long ways. And the sad thing is that we weren't able to weigh in and send this to citizens to kind of guide us in our acquisitions. So I'm following up a little bit on what was discussed earlier by Tom. So I don't want to take any more time, but it concerns me because all this money is being spent on the south side. And we're a dynamic village, and it's not just all south side. We have an east side, and we have a north side, and that does seem a little bit unbalanced. Thank you.
Okay, the floor is now closed for comments. I'm going to call for the question and call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes, but Mayor, we did have one more comment.
And who is that? Please come forward. Go right ahead. The vote's already passed, but you may comment.
I totally understand. It's just a question that could get answered. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. My name is Loretta Chavez Smith. I just have a question to try to understand this bond. We have $6,068,000.
Right.
Okay, is the 1.4 million that we have in reserve to buy land going to be put to this to buy the Anderson property?
Yes.
Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, appreciate it. We're going to move to item 11A, new business. Discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-0703, a resolution designating the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque participation in the Local Government Road Fund Program administered by the New Mexico Department of Transportation. Ms. Maria Rinaldi.
Mayor, trustees, you have the resolution and the proposed agreement for mayor's signature in your packet. This is awarding a total project cost of $466,667 to be funded proportionately by NMDOT in the amount of $350,000, with the village's proportional match of $116,666 per this agreement. Relative to my report earlier, the village budgeted the amount of $253,690 as the match in the application process on $1 million application. Proportionate to what we were awarded, the village is holding whole the amount that we designated as a match in the budget. So the village's portion of the project, they will not allow us to exceed it in the grant agreement. We just exceed it budget-wise within the village itself. So our agreement with them gives us a 25% match requirement. We're obviously going to exceed that by a significant amount of money. This resolution allows the mayor to sign this, and it allows for the pavement rehabilitation, improvements, reconstruction, full construction, drainage improvements, blading and shaping, miscellaneous design, construction management on designated roads within the village of Los Ranchos. I would answer any questions you might have.
Okay, before we get to questions, hang on. I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-07-03, participation in the Government Road Fund.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-07-03.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to go discussion from the governing body, trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
I have none.
Trustee Lewis.
I have none.
Trustee Benavides.
I have none.
Trustee Radnovich.
I have one.
Go right ahead.
So this money could be used for any roadway improvement?
Mayor Trustee Radnovich, in my report, you will see the roads that were designated in the application. We can drop roads off that list depending upon the money that we were funded. As I said, it was $1 million application. We were funded for $667,000. So roads will drop off. We cannot add any. And those roads come from the priorities of the village's roadway improvement fund, roadway improvement plan.
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, if I could just add one thing. As we develop the ICIP, those roads are listed. So the community will have an opportunity to weigh in on roads to prioritize next Tuesday at our public meeting.
Great.
But not for this funding. This funding is set.
Right. It's just the ICIP. Yeah. Is the problem that some of our residents mentioned for Tyler Road because it followed NMDOT specifications?
I don't.
Mayor Trustee no.
Ahead.
They do not require any specifications on municipal roads for crack seal and pavement rehab. But as I indicated in my report, and allowable in the agreement, is we can spend a portion of this money on design so that we can have someone assist the facilities planner who administers the project to make sure that there are no changes of grade that adversely affect the use of that facility. And I can tell you that the gravel portion was not part of the project as funded by NMDOT. That was an addition that the village made. But so I think there needs to be an effort made to ensure that unintended consequences do not happen on any of the future projects.
I agree. One last question is, can we use a design-build approach for any of this funding? It didn't mention that, and so I was curious about that.
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, we asked only for crack seal and pavement rehab, which is repave, mill and fill, or, Mayor, I'm drawing a blank here. You know this.
Storm drainage.
No, the pavement rehab process where you mill,
You're talking about full depth reclamation.
full depth reclamation. So that's what these projects are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, sir.
Any further questions?
No.
Okay, no one signed up to speak under this item of business. The floor is now closed for comments. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item B, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-07-04, a resolution approving a purchase agreement between the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque and the Patty Geraldine Anderson Trust under revocable trust agreement dated November the 27th, 2012, as amended and restated, and the Maxie L. Anderson Marital Trust under trust agreement dated October 11th, 1982. Administrator Simon.
All right, thank you, Mayor and trustees. Before you is the purchase agreement between the village and, as Mayor said, the Patty Anderson Trust and the Maxie Anderson Marital Trust to purchase and acquire 23 acres plus a home at 5100 Rio Grande Boulevard. The purchase agreement spells out the appraised value of the 3 tracts that make up the property, the total purchase price, which is $7.920 million, and conditions of closing, and I'm happy to go into those conditions.
Before we get to that, I am going to need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-07-04, approving the purchase agreement.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-07-04.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, now we get to discussion from the governing body, trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
I have none.
Trustee Lewis.
Give me a second here. No, I have none.
Trustee Benavides.
I have none.
Trustee Radnovich.
I just have a couple always, right? There's a line on page 151 that says, whereas purchaser is willing to purchase the property and to dedicate a portion of it as open space. Is that because there's a house on one of the parcels?
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, yes, that's exactly why.
Another question I had is about the home itself. It labels the home as a historic home. Is it historic by state or federal standards?
Mayor Lopez and Trustee Radnovich, no, not as far as I know. It's historical in the sense that we have this famed balloonist who lived there and built the home, who founded one of our beloved traditions, the Balloon Fiesta, and who entertained a lot of famous individuals. But as far as I know, it's a Mossman home from the 1950s. It's not particularly historic in any other way.
Yeah, I was just curious about that. Thanks, Ann. I have no other questions, Mayor.
Okay. 3 individuals signed up to comment. Randy McKee. Okay, Linda McKee, no. David Montoya. Please come forward. State your name and address.
Again, this is a jewel of the valley, and I've got to commend the administration for pulling this together, because this is truly a jewel. But the one thing that concerns me is all the efforts on this side, and I'm hopeful that we can find a way to spread the wealth. But thank you.
Mr. Montoya, before you leave the podium, would you remind us of your address?
David Montoya, 8831 4th Street.
Thank you so much.
The floor is now closed for comments. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item C, discussion and approval of a contract award in response to RFQ number 2023-05-LRLSM, providing management services for a federal FEMA levy scoping study. Administrator Simon.
All right, thank you, Mayor and trustees. Yes, back in 2022, FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management at the state of New Mexico awarded the village of Los Ranchos approximately $450,000 for a study of the efficacy of the levees from Alameda to Montano. The village has 3 years to expend the funds. And one of the nice things that came with this grant funding was an additional $21,000 for a grant manager. However, we had to procure this manager through a federal procurement process. So after the village solicited applications, we found Charles Thomas, who comes to us from SCAFCA, and many, many years of experience with federal grant management, including with FEMA. So we ask your approval of the professional services agreement before you.
Okay. Before we get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion to approve the contract award.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract award to Petroglyph, I believe it's called Petroglyph Consulting.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Now, let's go discussion from the governing body. Any questions from Trustee Pacheco?
I have none.
Trustee Lewis?
I have none.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes, I have a question, maybe more of a comment. I just thought it was odd that we need to have a contract for a management of a study.
It's in the FEMA grant.
It's, yeah, so, and that was money, the additional money that was awarded for this purpose. And it seems like it's a study. I thought it was odd that we just couldn't make a contract for a study.
May I interject what's going on here?
Yeah.
First of all, FEMA is rigid. You know, when they have a requirement, you have to fulfill it. It's really that simple. Secondly, having a project manager on this particular project, which is a 3-year project, who has extensive experience in flood control will be of great value to the village. That's really the bottom line.
I'll accept that, yeah. That's all I have, yeah, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
I just have 2 comments. One is Chuck Thomas is one of the best drainage engineers in town. I'm really happy that he's who we selected for this through a process. The thing I don't really understand about this is, excuse me, why exactly are we doing this? I thought the Army Corps controlled all of the levees and they do that work. So why is the village of Los Ranchos spending money?
Well, we're not spending our own money except for what we're matching.
I realize that, Mayor.
Okay, but let me answer that question directly. Those levees were constructed in the early 1950s by the Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers needs a project sponsor. Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District should be that project sponsor, but they're not helping the Corps with money. And so it was a determination by me and my staff to invite all of the stakeholders on this project to come forward and offer whatever they could so that we could study the levees to see whether or not they're at the right height, whether there should be some embankment work done on them, or whether or not You could even remove part of the levee, you know, in case the flooding is not as bad as it is. So this study will assist the village of Los Ranchos because we have a western boundary that is the levee that, in my opinion, is not safe. I don't believe it's safe. And for those of you who may think there'll never be flooding around here, that's probably what they said in Vermont, you know, a year ago. And all of a sudden, there's a catastrophe. I believe that we're in an extreme weather cycle, and I think that cycle is going to get even worse. If in fact there was a massive storm above Cochiti Dam and that spillway would flow, it would be uncontrolled. And these levees literally cannot handle more than about 7,000 or 8,000 cubic feet per second. They were designed for 42,000. That's the problem.
So, Mayor, I just have another question. Why isn't the Army Corps doing it?
Well, they are, but they
Through
don't have a
us.
start. They don't have a start because they don't have a sponsor who's putting up $1.5 million.
And they can't do it
So they
without
can't do it.
I see.
That's the reason.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Mayor.
you bet. We have one person signed up to speak, Loretta Chavez Smith. Loretta?
I'm sorry, I signed up for the wrong one. It was supposed to be number D.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Mayor, I think trustee Lewis
have
has a question.
Question for you,
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. We're the sponsor for to get the Corps of Engineers started.
Not yet. This is only a study. It may lead us to become the sponsor, depending upon what the findings of the study are.
All right, but we don't have $1.5 million budget.
We don't have $1.5 million.
Right, so you had said that spending $1.5 million, and I wanted people to understand here that we're not spending $1.5 million.
Oh, no.
We're spending $21,000 at this point. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to everybody.
No,
'cause
that's a great
It wasn't clear to me,
Okay,
and I just wanted to make sure we clarified it.
okay. I'm gonna call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Okay. Item D, discussion of the Infrastructure Capital Improvements Plan, ICIP, and upcoming schedule. Administrator Simon.
Awesome, thank you,
There's
Mayor.
no vote on this, it's just
Correct, Mayor and trustees. As you may recall from last year and years past, the village is strongly encouraged to develop an infrastructure capital improvement plan. And this outlines projects in the form of a listing of prioritized infrastructure needs and desires from the community. The benefits are numerous. We can request grant funding, both private, capital outlay, federal, other sources. It also helps community manifest its intended goals and make sure that they're spelled out. That said, the projects on the ICIP are not themselves requests for funds. This is just a planning tool. I think it's really important to emphasize that because I think there was some confusion last year that projects that were on the ICIP were requests for funding, and they are not. This is our plan. This is our desire into the future. Some of them are immediate needs, and some of them are needs further out. So we don't have years on these projects, but they are projects that are on our plan. This is an evolving document. We redo it every year. We submit it at the end of August. So next month, you will see the same document, or you might have some projects that were added. When we have our public meeting next week, which I hope everybody attends, we're going to meet on Tuesday, the 18th from 5:30 to 7 and go through each and every one of these projects. We'll be here to answer questions, and people can add to this list or suggest that they are a lower priority. So I'm going to go through them very quickly. The first project, and again, these are not in order. The first project is the community barn, the Alfredo Garcia barn here at Hartnett Park. I know that I had heard from many of you trustees last year that you wanted some incremental improvements to the barn. such as a electricity upgrade and some other kind of incremental improvements, not necessarily winterizing the barn. We have that on the list this year for the first time. You will not see barn parking lot, which we were able to take care of this year. We have 4th Street. That has been our #1 priority for many years. That is still on the list. Chavez Road Multi-Use Trail. New acquisition of land and property. You will see that this item dropped from $8 million, which was the amount that the voters approved our bond, to $2 million. We are now only borrowing $6 million. It gives us the opportunity to apply $2 million to another property. Road safety enhancements. This is our co-op project that you just approved. It's our 75-25 split. I don't think I have to say more about that. The Agri-Nature Center. We have some very specific ideas for the Agri-Nature Center. ADA bathrooms, for one. We've done a lot of wonderful improvements this year, so we're focusing very specifically on ADA bathrooms, base course for the rest of the roadway, and some improvements in the classroom. Old Village Hall, this is still on the list. We still have a plan from Decker Parish from 2021. The Veterans Memorial, this is still an idea that we would like to pursue. We get requests from veterans all the time. We'd like to honor their request. Village Hall. Village Hall needs constant upgrades. We have need for not only ADA restrooms, but we also are wanting to put solar on the roof. If we have a solar facility on the roof, we could have a solar campus. We could have EV charging stations, for example. Osuna and Second is a project out in the future. We don't know what will happen with that road, but we have it on our plan in the future to mitigate traffic problems should they come up. Sound barriers. Sound barriers on Paseo del Norte has been on the list for many years. We are working with our representatives, the DOT, to look at some quiet pavement and some other mitigation measures, but sound barriers, again, are on the list. Levee mitigation, this is not just the study, this is the actual reconstruction or mitigation, whatever comes out of the study. We have that, again, on the list out in the future if we need it. Not to say we won't have lots of partners because it's a big amount. And by the way, it says 10-4, it should say 10 million. And then we have the Schulte House, which is over at the Agri-Nature Center. Nice stand for questions.
Are there any questions about the ICIP process? Okay, I need to make a statement. It's 10:02 p.m. I have a commitment that I cannot break. Therefore, I must leave the meeting. Mayor Pro Tem Sandra Pacheco and Trustee Pacheco will conclude the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so I'm probably going to need a little coaching from our attorney moving forward, but I'm just going to go ahead and move to our next item, which is item E. And the applicant, Palindrome Communities LLC, requests the Board of Authorization to present factual information as permitted in accordance with 9.2.25 H3C at the appeals of SDP-01, SDP-02, and SDP-03, scheduled for July 26, 2023 at 5 p.m. So before we get started, I would like to ask each of the trustees for a full disclosure or potential conflicts of interest with this item. Trustee Pacheco, I have none. Trustee Lewis?
I have none.
Trustee Benavides?
I have none.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich?
I am going to recuse myself.
Thank you. Okay, Attorney Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In accordance with Ordinance 258, any party to an appeal can request permission from the Board of Trustees to present additional information. The parties in this case include Palindrome Communities, represented by council, and Friends of Los Ranchos, also represented by council. In accordance with 258, on June 23rd of 2023, Palindrome Council David Campbell did make such a request. He copied that note to Danielle, Ms. Simon, myself, a couple of folks in my office, as well as new counsel for Friends of Los Ranchos, Mr. Beck and Mr. Eves. He also copied Ms. Rubin, and of course, some folks at Palindrome. There was no response received from any of those parties except Danielle Cedillo. And Ms. Cedillo, on June 23rd, this is on page 178 of your packet, indicated that Mr. Campbell's request conformed with ordinance. On June 27th, Mr. Campbell, again copying new counsel for Friends of Los Ranchos, and Mr. Eves, specifically listed technically 17 documents he would like to introduce into the record, and then further indicated that he would like to present additional witness testimony. Again, no response since the 27th from Mr. Beck, representing Friends of Los Ranchos, or Mr. Eves, representing Los Ranchos. This morning, and let me just note for the record that Mr. Campbell noted in his email that to the extent these 17 items are not part of the record already, he was requesting that they be admitted. This morning, I went through and reviewed in quite detail all the planning reports applicable to the appeal you'll hear on the 26th. I reviewed the appeal both to the Board of Trustees, the appeal to the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as the Palindrome appeal also going that you'll be hearing on the 26th. After review of those documents, I determined that most of these documents listed on this list are in fact already part of the record. There are only 3 that I determined are not part of the record. The 3 that are not part of the record, one is identified as number 1, the Village of Los Ranchos Master Plan from 2020. And I'm looking at page 177 of the packet. The other document that does not appear to be part of the record thus far is the Palindrome MOU from November 14th of 2018. And the last document that does not appear to be part of the record is item number 14, Summary of Commercial Uses in the Village Center. Having determined that those 3 of the 17 documents identified are not part of the record, I queried council this morning. I sent a note to Mr. Campbell and both counsel for Friends of Los Ranchos, including Mr. Beck and Mr. Eves. I only heard from Mr. Eves, and his only comment was he opposed the request. The fact of the matter, however, is that the vast majority of these documents, other than the 3 I've identified, are already part of the record. Not only are they part of the record, some of them were referenced in Friends of Los Ranchos' appeal to the board and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and some of them were in fact attached to the appeal of the Friends of Los Ranchos. So for clarification, I think what you'll be hearing this evening is you'll be hearing from Mr. Campbell first for 10 minutes, then one of the legal counsel from Friends of Los Ranchos for 10 minutes, and then Mr. Campbell's been offered some rebuttal time. I think the request should only go to those 3 documents that I've just now identified, as well as I believe Mr. Campbell may have some further request as it concerns witness testimony. So let me know if you have any questions about that.
I have a question.
Can we take questions up front, or do we?
You can ask me anything you want right now.
Okay, go ahead, trustee Benavides.
So does the village have a requirement regarding how far in advance prior to the hearing this request needs to be made?
Madam Chair, trustee Benavides, not in this situation. If it's a request to the Board of Trustees, the answer is no. If it is a request to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the answer is yes.
So it could be even on the day of the hearing, they could make a request.
Absolutely. Madam Chair, trustee Benavides, I fully expected Friends of Los Ranchos to not only respond to Mr. Campbell's request, which they didn't, but I also fully expected Friends of Los Ranchos to make a similar request. They can still make that request. You would have to hear it before the hearing began on the 26th.
But it could be the same day, you just have to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I believe, Chair and trustee, that has happened in the past.
Okay, I don't recall, but okay.
Is that all you have, trustee? Trustee Lewis? I do have just a quick question. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind reading the section that allows evidence to be requested.
All right. Madam Chair, trustees, it's ordinance 258. It's an amendment to 9.2.25H, which is the appeals section. It's not in the codified online version of the code, but it is the number one ordinance on the page for ordinances. So it's section H3C. And I won't read the whole thing, I'll read the part that applies. And it says, without specific authorization by the Board of Trustees, no factual information not available for consideration by the Planning and Zoning Commission will be considered by the board, nor will any person or entity not participating in the hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission be permitted to participate or present testimony before the Board of Trustees. So the operative language here is without specific authorization of the Board of Trustees.
Okay, thank you. Sure, go ahead, trustee Benavides.
In our ordinance 9.2.2E9, it says, all testimony, information, and documents submitted to the commission prior to its decision and the minutes of the meeting and transcript of the meeting will constitute the record in the event of an appeal. So it seems to establish what items go in the record of appeal. So is that contrary to 9.2.25H3C?
Madam Chair, trustee Benavides, I can only tell you that the appeals section that was amended is the later enactment, and it is what applies.
And when was that enacted?
2017.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Mr. David Campbell, if you will, obviously you approach the podium, if you'll just state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is David Campbell. My address is P.O. Box 20280, Albuquerque 87154. I represent Palindrome Development, or Palindrome Communities, LLC, which has the Village Center contract with the Village of Los Ranchos for development of the Village Center site. Let me start by saying that the Village Center project has been 20 years in the making. It's got vision and energy over generations and many meetings, and easily the most documented land use case that I've seen in my 36-year career in terms of the amount of documentation and reviews and meetings and technical specifications and so on. In 2 weeks from today, we have a hearing on this Village Center appeal. Palindrome is requesting tonight that many documents and public records generated in this Village Center project be included in the record before the Board of Trustees. I appreciate that Council Winter has sort of hone down what she believes is in the record, but as I understand, there may be some dispute with that. So I'm going to go ahead and address the 16 or 17 documents that we believe are in the record and should be in the record before the Board of Trustees in 2 weeks. We believe that these documents are essential for the Board of Trustees to have a full awareness of the case and the work of years of your staff, your administration, the planning and zoning, the mayors who have been involved in this, and the boards of trustees over the years and candidly the decades. Also, whatever the outcome of the July 26th appeal hearing, if this Village Center project is appealed to district court, it will be a requirement of the court that a full, robust record below be developed and handed over to the court, because that's what the court will look at in the event of an appeal of this matter. And that's not a far-flung notion. Already, there are 2 lawsuits sitting in district court against the Village of Los Ranchos about this very parcel. So we are requesting, Palindrome is requesting the addition of 16 or 17 documents or exhibits to the record. And each, we believe, is already in the record of this matter. And Attorney Winter agrees with us. And it's also contained in the Village of Los Ranchos public records. So that being said, we, being conservative lawyers wearing both, I'm not wearing suspenders tonight, but if I were belt and suspenders, my request is that this matter be considered tonight for all 17 of these documents. Now, as I mentioned, this matter has already gone to district court by the plaintiff, Friends of Los Ranchos, twice, with 2 pending cases in court. And while we disagree with practically every statement and allegation by Friends of Los Ranchos in their court pleadings, there is a happy circumstance, because Friends of Los Ranchos has introduced in court or referred the court to many of the same documents that Palindrome wants the Board of Trustees to permit to be in the record for the July 26th hearing. Other documents are already contained in or referred to in the village's own zoning reports and notices of decision. As I already said, the Village of Los Ranchos has been very transparent, and I want to point out that each one of the documents that are being requested tonight are for Friends of Los Ranchos to take to court and introduce before the judge. Then indeed this judge, this Board of Trustees, should be able to consider them in 2 weeks. First of all, we're asking that the 2020 and 2035 master plans be included. These are in existence. They are part of the village's history. And the 2020 master plan led into the 2035 and has mention of the specific Village Center project, maybe not by that name, but also but an intensive development at the corner of 4th and Osuna. These additionally are referenced in Exhibits 1, 2, and 3 of Friends of Los Ranchos' verified petition for writ of mandamus. The zoning code section 9.25.14 about the village center zone is not only a village law, but it is included in the Friends of Los Ranchos exhibit in the trial notebook that we did last month, or that they did last month, for the motion for writ of mandamus. Additionally, the Ordinance 2007-3-2 Declaration of Blight under the MRA is included as Exhibits 1, 2, and 3 of Friends of Los Ranchos' verified petition for writ of mandamus. It's also Exhibit 1 of the village's own response to the motion for summary judgment. The fourth item, the village request for proposals for redevelopment, issued on April 2nd, 2018, is included in the very documents that are being appealed in 2 weeks, and that is the Site Development Plans 23-1, -2, and -3. Number 5, the Village of Los Ranchos Palindrome MOU dated November 14th, 2018 is a public document. It's annexed in the village's records, signed by Mayor Lopez, and it is a public document that deals specifically with this project. The Palindrome response to the RFP on July 13th, 2018 is also included in the very documents that are referenced in the very documents that are at issue here, the Site Development Plans 23, 1, 2, and 3. The Village Center Project Area Metropolitan Redevelopment Plan adopted by the village on March 14th, 2018 is Exhibit 13 in the Friends of Los Ranchos Supplemental Exhibit Notebook for their hearing on the writ of mandamus last month. The village and the Palindrome Purchase, Sale, and Development Agreement of October 2020 is an exhibit in the Friends of Los Ranchos Mandamus briefing book to the court, in addition to being part of the village's own records. The Village Center project requirements dated April 21st, 2021, which is a letter from the Planning and Zoning Director to Palindrome, is included as Exhibit 11 in Friends of Los Ranchos supplemental exhibits at the mandamus hearing. Palindrome's site development plan applications are attached to the Palindrome appeal that is before you in 2 weeks, but they are also the very matter that is being appealed. The Village of Los Ranchos sketch plat approval done on May 24th, 2022 is referenced in the Planning Director's 4/28/23 planning report, which was the planning report that Ms. Rubin did in advance of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So it is mentioned in there as something that should be considered, or it was to be considered by Planning and Zoning. The traffic impact study, which was submitted June 13th, 2022, is also referenced in the April 28th Planning Director's report. The Village of Los Ranchos preliminary plat approval of July 29th, 2022 is Exhibit 11 in Friends of Los Ranchos verified petition for writ of mandamus. The summary of commercial uses in Village Center was annexed to the village's website in September 2022, and we're requesting that that be added. It was part of a report that was delivered to the Board of Trustees, we believe, in that September 2022 timeframe. The Village of Los Ranchos final plat approval dated August 2022 is also referenced in the village's Planning Director report of 4/28. And the trailhead, and this is the, sure, the final one, the trailhead at Chamizal grading and drainage plan dated August 2022 is also referenced in the Planning Director's report, which was in advance of the Planning and Zoning hearing. We also request limited witness testimony to rebut the Friends of Los Ranchos allegations in this administrative matter and elsewhere. That testimony that we are requesting will touch on and rebut allegations concerning housing and the type of housing that's being built. We plan to have a witness for a history of this project and the village's careful planning of it. We also plan to have a commercial tenant who may be interested or would be interested in locating on this site.
If you could just finish up,
Sure,
Mr.
you bet.
Campbell.
And finally, a representative of the Apartment Association of Greater Albuquerque. And that's our request of the Board of Trustees. Tonight I'll reserve time for a rebuttal.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mel-Eves, attorney for Friends of Los Ranchos, please approach the podium, and you have 10 minutes. Thank you. And Mr.
I was
Eves,
frankly disappointed.
Mr. Eves, before you get started,
You're
just,
right. That's
sorry,
correct.
just so you know, we'll give you an extra couple of minutes as well, but we'll end it right at that, so that it's an even opportunity to speak.
Very generous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mel Eves, 721 Chavis Road Northwest. And I represent Friends of Los Ranchos. I was really disappointed that your village attorney, in her effort to further assist Palindrome, and those of us who've been involved know what I'm talking about. She didn't tell you about the statute or the ordinance that was brought to her attention by Gilbert Benavides. That ordinance clearly says that you have to present to the commission the information, the evidence, the testimony. It has to be used in the proceeding. And I agree with my good friend, David Campbell, that they have put on their list some things that we've got on our list as well. And I certainly don't object to those because we put them in front of the commission. What we object to is anything that wasn't presented to the commission. And there's a really good reason for that. This is an appeal. You ought to have exactly the same information in front of you that the commission had to make their decision. That's the fair way to do it. And the statute Gilbert Benavides cited that's the sole purpose of it. There's no fairness if they didn't present something that they want to use now to that commission, then you shouldn't have a different record to judge the commission's decision by. I can tell you in court, in the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, you wouldn't get away with that. And he closes his argument by telling you they want to call some witnesses. They didn't give you the names of the witnesses. They didn't tell you what they're going to testify about. And they certainly didn't present those witnesses in the proceeding before the commission. So I think that the statute Gilbert referred to, Ordinance 258 as well, they are designed so that you have the same information to make your decision, your judgment, that the commission had in front of it. And they certainly had no witnesses. The night of the hearing, Palindrome presented nothing in the way of evidence. Nothing. It was oral argument and no witnesses. And I'm disappointed that Village Council didn't take the time to point that out to you as well. But this, quite frankly, arguing about that is really not the issue in this case. The issue in this case, which you'll hear a lot more about, is the fact that this governing body is no longer the governing body of the Trailhead at Chamizal major subdivision. And we've put that into the record in spades. I've gone back and I know that section 3.3 of the development agreement, which trustee, 3.3 of the development agreement is what they're relying on to say that they can basically preempt and supersede your power as the board over the zoning applications that are coming from, that should be coming in front of you. I looked at the transcript of that hearing that you had in October of 2020, when Trustee Lewis made the motion to approve of the development agreement. It was less than 15-minute discussion of an agreement that Ms. Winter drafted. She took no time at all to explain to the trustees her interpretation of that agreement. She didn't tell anyone that if you do this, the governing board is giving up all of its authorities over zoning applications for this subdivision to two salaried employees, the planning and zoning director and the city administrator, village administrator, neither of whom is elected. And I've gone back through the records of previous meetings, and this Board of Trustees, unlike any other subdivision that this was the biggest you've ever done, but unlike any other subdivision that you have made decisions in, or the people on the board then made decisions in, this Board of Trustees has made no zoning application decisions in this case. Nothing has come to you. The plats, as we point out in our papers, the sketch plat, preliminary plat, and final plat, none of those came to you. And there are, as I cited in the papers I've given you, those are required to come directly to the commission and you worked with the commission to get the conditions all worked out and to give final approval. 9.2.2 D3 of the ordinances says that you are reserving unto yourself the sole exclusive authority to give final approval to site development plans. Those sections of the ordinances apply to this case. And it astounds me that village council, I don't know what she tells you in private, but in the meetings I've been to, she has never, ever taken what I think is an objective legal view of exactly what's going on. And you basically being told you don't have any authority to judge plats or site development plans because of 3.3 in the development agreement. The big mistake that was made when that development agreement was drafted, and it's a whopper, is that they did not put any language in 9.2.14, the VC zone. There's language in there carving out the subject property. And it's an attempt to keep 9.2.25, which applies to site development plans, from applying to the subject property. But the draft person who did that, whatever lawyer that was, made a big mistake, because the other sections in the ordinance, like 9.2.2 D3, 9.1.7, 9.1.8, which deal with plats, specifically require this board to give final approval. And those statutes have not been repealed or amended. And the only way that 3.3 could have come into law and displaced the various sections that I've cited to that require this board to give final approval, the only way that could have been avoided was to follow your ordinance requirements and the state statutory requirements that require you to carefully draft and publish an amendment to an ordinance, a repeal of an ordinance, an enactment of a new ordinance. That was never done, never done. And 3.3 by itself is just a contract that was negotiated between the village and Palindrome. And that by itself does not amend the ordinance. And so I was amused when I saw the list of items that they want to bring into the case. But I wasn't worried at all, because this case is all about whether or not the village has followed the zoning code that it adopted, that this Board of Regents, that's way back in my career, that this Board of Trustees adopted. And we have briefed this thoroughly, and no one, Palindrome or your village council, no one has countered the argument that 9.2.2D3, 9.1.7, 9.1.8, dealing with plats, no one has said those don't apply, because they do. They know they do. And what we've got here is a very, very strange situation where the same attorney who drafted the development agreement is now in the position of having to defend what she has done along with Palindrome. And I'm not going to be quiet about that, because I think that you are entitled as a Board of Trustees to have independent legal advice who has no possible concern about having made a mistake in the way things were drafted. And this evening, am I angry about what she did this evening and giving you half the story about and omitting the statute that Mr. Benavides so carefully pointed out? You can finish up your thought. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I have nothing further to add to that, except to say you've set a precedent here. And the first phases on this project, which are now underway, what about the other phases? Is this governing board going to sit back and be told, you're not the governing board on the other phases? Are you ready to give that up? And I would love to ask Trustee Lewis, did anybody tell him that when he gave the motion to approve, and I think Trustee Pacheco voted in favor of the motion, and did anyone tell you that you were giving up the governing board's authority over all these major zoning decisions, major subdivision plat, and site development plans? And
Thank you, Mr. Eves. If you can finish up, I'd appreciate it.
May I have 30 seconds? The problem that's been created now is that construction was allowed to be commenced on this property before the site development plans were approved. And you've got a commission who basically vacated the decision of the administrator and the director to approve the site development plans.
Thank you, Mr. Eves.
It's a mess.
Thank you. Okay, if we can get, thank you, Mr. Eves. Mr. David Campbell, you now have 3 minutes. Thank you as a rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eves has given you his opening statement for 2 weeks from tonight. He really has not addressed why, in fact, you should have less information before you, less of a record, fewer documents in order to make this decision. His point that he seems to be making is that the problem dates back to October of 2020, when this panel passed, adopted the purchase, sale, and development agreement, October 2020. There was an opportunity at that time for anybody who wanted to file an appeal of that document, as one can for matters that come before this board. What's really going on here, and the reason that he didn't address this document issue, is because the Friends have, in effect, concocted a narrative. And that narrative says that there is skullduggery going on in Village Hall, and there's bad people like Village Council who are doing things in the darkness of night and so on, and that the records should not, that you should stay sort of ignorant of the records of this case that go back 20 years. And in order for that narrative to work, indeed, they don't want the 20 years of documents and the village's records and the careful review and planning of this. And what they really want is to appeal a decision that was made nearly 3 years ago here in this room. So that's why Friends of Los Ranchos wants you to eliminate these years of records and documents that show the very careful, very deliberate staff work that your team here at the Village has done to arrive at the development that we now have. I believe that the Village of Los Ranchos, guided by the Board of Trustees, has done a thorough, complete, and expert job of documenting this. I'm sorry.
Please, can we keep it quiet, please? Okay, can we just be professional here? I mean, this is not where it's late. I know we're all tired, but can we let council finish, please? Thank you. If you feel threatened, please, can you please move? Thank you. Continue, Mr. Campbell. I'm sorry.
Let me just conclude with this. The Village of Los Ranchos, over a period of many years, 20 years, has done a thorough, complete, and expert job of documenting this. All we're asking is that work, that years of staff work, years of work at the Board of Trustees, from your master plans to your zoning code, be allowed to be considered by this decision-making body in 2 weeks, so that you will make the best possible decision, and so that you will have a record in the event that almost inevitably this is taken to district court, that the district court will have a full and robust set of records and documents on which to make a proper decision. I thank you for your attention to this tonight and would ask that you grant our motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. No, Mr. Eves, I think we're just gonna, I think you said, I think we heard you, for sure. Thank you. Okay, we need to move forward. We're not gonna hear any other, okay. So we're gonna need to move forward on a motion to approve or deny the request from the applicant, Palindrome Communities. Are either of the Board of Trustees ready to make that motion? And we need a motion to be made before we can have any discussion, just so you're aware.
I'll make a motion to approve the request by Palindrome Communities to have all the documents that we can have before us put in the record. And I would encourage the same thing. I think fair is fair. I would encourage Friends of Los Ranchos to come forth with any and all documents they want. I don't want there to be any, these decisions were based on, we didn't have this information or that information. Let's just put all the information out there and bring it before us. And so that's my feeling, is that I'm for having everything in front of me that I can have in front of me.
Thank you, trustee. Do I have a second? Okay, I'll go ahead and second that motion. Let's go ahead. Is there any discussion from the governing board? I'm sorry? I'm still a trustee, so I can vote. Thank you. I'm Mayor Pro Tem, but I'm a trustee first. So yes, I can, and if you'd like to clarify, Attorney Winter, I'd be happy to let you do that.
Madam Chair, you're correct.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee Benavides, go ahead, please.
Well, let's see, a couple things. The new information that Attorney Campbell suggested we introduce for our July 26th meeting seems to be a moot point for the July 26th meeting. It doesn't seem to be new information to me. So I think he alluded to why he thinks that information is important, because there could be litigation in district court. So the benefit is not for us here, it's for some future court case. So I'm worried that us sitting up here are accepting risk for no benefit to us. And I don't understand why he can't introduce that at a later date. I don't know why this precludes him from introducing that information at a later date.
Is that all you have, trustee?
That's it, yes.
Okay. Trustee Lewis, do you have any further comment?
No, I still feel like, this is a very big issue. And if there's any information that we don't have before us to help us with our decision, then I would want it before us, and I would want both sides to present whatever information or add in any information they want to add in.
Thank you, Trustee Lewis.
Can I add anything more?
Absolutely.
So we've come across this before where we've had an appeal come to us, and it's always been, the process has always been no new information. Okay, so there is this ordinance that I was not aware of, a 9.2.25H3C. However, we've never bothered to inform anybody of that before, and that's why I asked the question, was there a requirement about the length of time prior to the hearing that they must present this? And somebody could have told us right then and there, yes, you can, as trustees, you can accept new information if you want it. And I never heard that. So I'm worried that we are accepting risk because we're doing something out of the norm.
Thank you, trustee. Just from my standpoint, I feel like I need all the information, and I, like Trustee Lewis, feel like Friends of Los Ranchos should also bring any requests. If we're gonna sit up here and make a decision this important, we should have everything in front of us to make that decision, 100%. So if I think we're moving in the right direction here. Again, I feel like if Friends of Los Ranchos would like to ask for, to provide additional evidence, I think we'd all agree to that as well. Because we as the governing body needs to have all the facts in front of us to make the decision. So thank you all. I'm gonna go ahead and call for the question and call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
No?
Very good. Trustee Pacheco? Yes. So the motion carries unanimously, 2-1.
Not unanimous.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Correction. Yes.
Correction. The vote carries 2-1.
Madam Chair, I'd like to just clarify for the record, because it's not, in case it's not crystal clear. Items 1 through 16, all but the 2020 Los Ranchos Master Plan, item number 5, the MOU from 2018, and item number 14 are already a part of the public, are already a part of the record. So I just wanted to make it crystal clear for the record that most of these documents are already a part, and at least three, I mean, none of them is new information, but most of them are already part of this record. One other point of clarification, Stelzner regularly lets appellants know that they have the opportunity to present additional information. We have had multiple appeals presented both to P&Z and to the Board of Trustees, and we regularly correspond with appellants, letting them know that 9.2.25H3C gives them that opportunity. So it might not have presented itself to the board, but it's something that we correspond fairly often on.
Thank you, Attorney Winters. I appreciate that. We do not need to amend the motion.
No, no, I just wanted the record to be clear that 90% of the documents on this list are already a part of the record.
Very good, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item 12, trustee informal discussion.
George, you want to come back?
Oh, George.
He's still here.
Okay, let's go ahead and finish this up. I'm going to go ahead and start with, can we, if you're going to speak, can you please speak outside so we can finish the business? Thank you. Let's go ahead and start with you, Trustee Lewis.
The only item I have is the one I brought up in May. I still want to get together with the young lady that brought the mistletoe issue before us. I do not want her information to fall on deaf ears, and I really would like to have a meeting with her, or all of us with a meeting with her.
Thank you, Trustee Lewis. Trustee Benavides.
Yes, I wish we could get back to talking about mistletoe and gravel on public right-of-ways. Life would be much easier if we could do that. I think the comments about the gravel is probably a good point, and you know we can learn, and I think maybe what they're suggesting is something like a crusher fine might be a better option. Just moving forward, you know.
Is that it?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Trustee. Trustee Radnovich.
Let's see. Actually, I don't have a whole lot to say. I would like to. I would like us at some point in the future to look at the B&B ordinance again. We didn't have anything to do with that, and I mean, I shouldn't say that. Trustee Benavides and myself didn't have anything to do with that, and I think there's some shortfalls in that ordinance, and I would like to bring it back. I know that Maida is really, really busy, and busy with many things on all fronts of life, and Ann is too. But I would like to bring that up at some point in the future.
Thank you, Trustee Radnovich. I don't really have anything else to add to this meeting.
You don't want to talk about mistletoe?
I do want to talk about mistletoe, just not at this meeting.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and if I could get a motion to, do I need a motion to adjourn? I just adjourn. Okay,
Yep.
we are adjourned at 10:54. Thank you, everybody,
Oh, my God.
and trustees.
Was it ugly?